All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hey, what's up, buddy?
What's going on?
Nothing much, just chilling.
So, what was I crying about yesterday?
I don't even remember, to be honest. You came in screaming over something.
Well, actually, first there's like what so what was your position yesterday? You obviously came through the Bernard Riley show and had issue, I guess, with something he said, or you had debated Myron or something, and your position was that women have evolved and men are stuck in the past. That was your position?
In regards to like who needs to do what for like in the broadest sense, red pill people seem to give advice about how men and women operate and like what they need to do to succeed, what men need to do to succeed, and I tend to disagree with a lot of the framing, and part of it plays into kind of what you just said. Yeah.
Okay, so what part of the framing do you have a disagreement about?
I feel like men need to work a lot more on relationship skills, that it's something that they just don't have much practice with. And it feels like for red pill communities, the obsession is like just be more traditional or become a top one percenter, which is advice for like 1% of the population. I don't think it's like a road to success for most people.
Okay, well, I would say that nowadays most people don't really have good relationship skills. Not just
Um,
men.
okay. I mean, I would disagree. Do you want to talk about that or?
Um, well, no, I really wanted to debate you about what we were talking about yesterday, as far as this whole concept. Because correct me if I'm wrong, you have this concept that women have evolved and improved and made these changes and these leaps and bounds, and they kind of have just left men in the dust, right?
A little bit, yeah.
So how would you how I'm trying to understand.
Um, so um, I think that for a long time, the world was kind of like built by and built for men's existence. And over the past, I don't know what, 30, 40, 50 years, especially over the past like 20 years, women have been getting a lot of help or pushing in different ways in society to achieve and succeed and do better. And it was previously thought that, like, well, women can't attain educational levels similarly to men. There are a lot of things that men can do that women can't do. And we're starting to see that, given a push, women are able to do a lot of these things. So we're seeing women right now, they're destroying men in school. And what we might be learning is it might be that women's brains, they're actually just better learners than men. That men might be like more physically oriented. We want to go outside, we want to do things or build things and stuff like that. Whereas women are more calm, chill. They can sit in a classroom, take notes, and do class all day, right? If that's the case, then we're kind of like setting women up for success better than we are even setting men up for success. And it's hard to have a conversation about what to do to like make men successful. So as women have kind of like improved their lot and standing in society through things like school, reproductive control, better career opportunities, men are kind of like sitting here like, well, fuck, what am I supposed to do? People have cried about toxic masculinity for 2 decades. A job is not enough to secure a wife anymore. I have no idea what to do or where to go to in society. That seems to be like where guys are stuck at right now. And when I look at the red pill communities, it's just like a bunch of like what feels like women hating rhetoric, and then like appeals to tradition or appeals to try to become the top 1%. Like that's my issue. Like that's not good advice for anybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's a couple of things wrong with what you said. Number one, women are not blowing men out of the water when it comes to education. We've actually been lowering the standards for them to actually be able to achieve certain things. They've actually lowered the standards when it comes to uh, a lot of the different studies. They've lowered the standards when it comes to the barrier to entry, when it comes to the military, numerous things. So it's not that women are blowing men out of the water. It's that we're catering to them, which we have always done. The men haven't really built the world for themselves. The majority of the inventions and the things that we've come up with, we've came up with in order to make life more comfortable for women. So it's not that they're blowing us out of the water, and it's not that the men actually have are stuck in a position. What men have found is they live in a world now where the focus has been on women and catering to women, while simultaneously ostracizing men and making them feel like they're not worth anything or they don't have any value, when men by and large still do many of the jobs that maintain the infrastructure of our society.
Okay, so the part about lowering standards, I don't agree with that. I would have to look into it more, but my familiarity with lowering the standards is I know that there has been research done for University of California schools where for certain affirmative action programs, they would lower the standards to get more minority students, namely African American students, to enroll in these colleges. But when they lowered the standards there, what would happen is more of those students would apply and get accepted to the colleges, but the graduation rates and absolute numbers stayed the same. So they were getting into school, but then they were flunking out because the standards were lowered and they weren't able to attain the degree. So if they were lowering the standards and more women were getting accepted, but they weren't graduating, then I might agree with you, but that's not the case. We're talking about graduation rates right now. If the standards were lowered, and that's what was allowing women to graduate more, then we would see men graduating at the same rates as they were before, but they aren't, right? Especially over the coronavirus period, a lot of men were expected to stay home and work, whereas women didn't have those same burdens placed on them. And also, women have a bit more available to them in the world of like affirmative action and kind of like assistance for women to go to school. You are seeing women, not just because the standards are lowered, but because society's pushing them in a direction. They are doing better in school, like full stop.
Well,
they just are.
Here's the reality about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not that difficult to do better in school when you're taking gender studies or getting a degree in basket weaving. Or is that across the board in STEM, or is that across the board in gender studies and other things like that, arbitrary stuff that really doesn't amount to anything? First of all, you have to realize that when it comes to education, the enrollment of men is down across the board anyway. Because like I said before, we live in a society now that is very hostile towards men. So there are a lot of different things that men don't want to be a part of anymore. They don't want to be a part of college, the college experience anymore, simply for the fact that it's a hostile environment for them. Everything is about toxic masculinity and all of this crap. And let's be honest, the colleges are no longer institutions of higher learning. They've now become institutions of indoctrination, with gender studies and all of this other crap that most men can't really identify with, especially if they're red-blooded American males. They find this whole thing that's going on right now extremely hostile. And when you talk about women graduating, right? I don't know. I can't speak to the whole spectrum of women, but I do know when it comes to the Black community, yes, Black women are the most enrolled. And yes, they do graduate, but they usually graduate with some ridiculous degree that they don't even use. Not to mention the fact that women that actually do become entrepreneurs, 96% of their freaking businesses fail. So no, they're not outpacing men. They just live in a society that has stacked the deck against men and catered to them. Every single program that comes out now is for women.
Okay, so I hear this argument is brought up a lot that women just get degrees in like basket weaving and gender studies. Do you sincerely believe that that's the majority types of degrees that women are getting, or I'm just trying to figure out before I go down that road?
You believe most women, when they enroll in college, they go into STEM?
I didn't say STEM, but you know that there's more than just STEM and basket weaving, right?
Okay, well, my thing is, and I've stated this numerous times on my show, I think if you're not going into the STEM field, college is a waste of time and waste of money.
Okay, that's fine if that's your opinion, but one, that's not true, and two, there are other purposes to college, right? You can make money outside of STEM.
We can say that it's not. First of all, if you look at the way college is set up now, and you look at the amount of student loan debt that you're going to get into after 4 years at a university, going for anything other than STEM absolutely is a waste of time.
Okay, you're assuming that there's so many bad assumptions here. I'm sorry. One, when you say waste of time, what you really mean is that the only thing you should be looking for, the only thing college should do is prepare you for a job. That's the only purpose of college.
Yes.
Okay. That's not true, right? There are important like fields of education that we would want people to do more research in. It's important to have people
Such
as I don't know, having like historians, having writers. A lot of women get jobs in education. Teachers are arguably some of the most important people in society.
Historians, the vast majority of the history that they teach every single decade, we find out it's a lot of the shit is freaking lies. Are you serious right now?
What do you mean?
Historians?
What do you mean by find out their lies? Like from other YouTubers, or what do you mean?
No, by other people who go and do the research. It's
historians,
like,
right?
We find out this not formally trained historians. Not formally trained historians.
Can you give me, okay, I never do this in debates, and if you don't have the ability to do this, you don't have one off the top of your head, that's totally fine. I'm not trying to push you on like gotchas for anything. But like, can you give me like an example of like, this is something that historians thought was one way, and then like an amateur investigator completely overruled and figured out that all the historians were wrong?
Okay, well, let's start with say ancient Egypt. There were a bunch of historians that made a bunch of claims about the Egyptians, and a gentleman by the name of Dr. Ben Yakinen actually went to Egypt and actually found out that a lot of the things they were saying were not true. That's one example.
What is this in relation? What was like a claim that wasn't true? Wait, hold on. Is this like, this isn't like the Yakubian shit, is it? Is this something different, or
we're gonna start? Let's not go off into that. The main point that I'm trying to make is that yes, okay, you have people who go to college, they want to become artists. I went to school for art, right? You have people that go to college become artists. You have people that go to college become historians, and all of that's cool. But the point that I'm trying to make is when we're talking about the importance of our society and the structure, I'm talking about the bare bone structure of it functioning. We need engineers, we need scientists, we need people in the STEM field. So if we're talking about the importance of women, if we're talking from your perspective that women are outpacing men, I'm going to be looking at that field. I'm not going to be looking at art and history and stuff like that.
I don't want a society that just has the bare bones. That sounds fucking miserable. We need things like art. This is where we spend like 95% of our time.
And I totally agree with that. I'm an artist. I totally agree with that. But the problem is your premise is that women are outpacing men. In order for women to outpace men, they would have to be outperforming them in the bare bones of our society, the things that make the structure run. That's the point that I was making yesterday.
Okay, I don't even know if we disagree. This might just be a semantics thing. Earlier, it sounded like you agreed with me that society has structured itself around accelerating women, and it seems to be doing a good job at that, and a lot of men are being left behind. Do you agree with that, or do you disagree with that?
It is accelerating women, but in a very in a disproportionate way, and in a very sneaky, underhanded way. It's not like, okay, let's try this, right? Let's try this, because I think your perception of red pill or the manosphere is that just everybody over here just hates women, blah, 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 blah. I don't have an issue with women competing if they're actually competing. In other words, if the playing field is level. But what we have going on today is not a level playing field. We have a rigged game. We, on the one hand, we have people saying, okay, well, women are equal to men. Women are fully capable of doing what men do. You've even said a second ago that women, you kind of implied that women were smarter than men.
I did. So, hold on, let me be real clear. What I said was their biology might be better suited to classrooms than men.
It's better suited to following.
I
That's
don't
the
know if
reason why.
following is that's a stupid
That's
loaded
the
term. Let's say
no,
let's
no,
hold on, wait,
because
let's
no,
be no,
because
wait,
you're gonna
let's
get.
hold
See,
on.
you're getting sensitive over
No. I'm
terminology.
not getting sensitive over term. I just want to be clear with their terms, okay? Here's fact number one. Most men are followers. Most men are not leaders, okay? So most people in general are followers. When I say that women are better suited towards learning, it seems to be the case that male bodies are just more in general suited towards activity. They want to be outside, they want to be doing things, they want to be building things. This is why all of our little boys are getting diagnosed with fucking ADHD, because sitting inside of a fucking classroom all day with your fucking head staring at a textbook and doing notes is agonizing to a lot of young men. That's just something that we're not built for as well. Whereas women don't mind. They are better at like being calm, at being chill, at being more cerebral, taking notes, studying and doing that. That just seems to be a thing that their biology seems to be better suited for. I'm not saying one is a follower and one is a leader or one is smarter or one is dumber. I'm just saying in the ways that we are, women seem better suited to classroom environments. That's what I'm saying.
First of all, we can't look. I'm not a leftist, so I'm not ultra sensitive when it comes to terminology. Okay, there are structures in our society that are very important that have leaders and have followers. Okay, now I will agree that the boys do not like sitting in a classroom all day. It's frustrating to them. But men are naturally more rebellious than women are. And the reason why is because men are not natural followers. Even if you have structures where men are following, why do you think in the military they have to have a boot camp? Because those men have to be basically conditioned to follow properly because they are naturally rebellious. There's a reason why when girls are in school, they do better in school, because the way that structure is, they're given instructions and we understand what the school system is. The school system was designed around the Prussian school system, which basically was created for the purpose of creating factory workers, created for the purpose of creating better soldiers, okay? People that are going to follow suit. That's exactly what the educational system is here in America, all right? So it's not an insult to say that women are followers. That's not an insult. It's just a reality. Men are not as prone to follow as women are.
I'm just saying that most people are followers. We have to agree on that. Work only works if you have one manager and many employees. The army only works if you've got one general and many soldiers. A country only works if you've got one president and many constituents. Most people are followers. Society only works. That's why there's the whole phrase, too many chiefs and not enough Indians. You have to have followers in society, right? So,
that's true.
And then even when we look at classrooms where we're saying like, oh, like women are better to following, and that's why they do better in classrooms. Who's teaching? Who's leading the classrooms? It's women. Isn't it like 95% of teachers are women? Like
now.
No,
but here's the thing. You just said something that gave validity to my point. Where do you think the term "there's too many chiefs and not enough Indians" comes from? The reason you have that term is because every time you have a group of men following another man, there's always a subset of men that's trying to overthrow that man. So no, they're not naturally followers. Men will follow until they're in a position to take over. The reason why most men follow is not because they're just like, well, I'm gonna, go with the flow. They follow because they don't have the power to take over who's ever in the position above them. That's the reason why men do that.
I don't know where to move from here. I've had a lot of experience managing a lot of people across a diverse amount of, whether it's fucking video games, whether it's fucking business, whether it's organizing podcasts, whether it's just watching people in society. Like, most people gravitate towards following. Most men don't want the responsibility of being in charge of other people. Most men don't want the responsibility of taking on the negatives of an outcome of a decision that involves other people. That's just, being in a leadership role is really difficult.
No, but they want the glory.
Yeah, but that's not being a leader. That doesn't count. Everybody wants to. That doesn't count.
But no, that's where that comes from. In order for you to get the accolades, the glory, to get the ego boost, every dude, even if they admit it or not, has had a desire to be that guy, to be the head guy.
Sure, that's
Okay,
everybody
that's
can
the
have a desire.
reality.
That's fine. If you want to say something like men have a desire to be leaders, that's fine. I would agree with you there. But men are not naturally leaders. Leadership is
Okay,
a
so
skill
you're
that's
trying.
crafted over time. Most
So
people
you're
are not suited for it, and just wanting the glory of being a leader does not make you somebody that
Oh,
is
so
a
you're
leader.
talking about you're okay. So we're getting into look. Here's the thing. I'm not saying that every man that spawns is has the ability to be freaking Julius Caesar. That's not what I'm
That's
saying.
not even what I'm saying, but all right.
Well, you're saying that, I'm assuming that you're saying that men naturally have the ability to be great leaders,
What
right?
all I'm saying is, broadly speaking, men and women have way more in common than they do separately from each other. And when people
I
try to,
totally disagree with that. I
I'm sure you
completely.
do. When people try to draw these hardcore separations out of like men are leaders, women are followers, like these broad generalizations, they end up missing like most of the story, and they send people down really mind-fucked paths that don't accurately describe the world, and then it leaves them ill-suited to succeed in the world. That's my problem.
Well, I mean, look, in a perfect world, that might actually be a reality. But we don't live in a perfect world. And I refuse to believe that we can circumvent hundreds of thousands of years of bioevolution with what, less than 100 years of a certain ideology. Like, really? So the past, so the entire civilization has gotten it wrong up until 50 years ago. Now all of a sudden, the new age way of thinking is the way we're supposed to do
I don't
things.
know what
So
you when you
men,
say like gotten it wrong. I mean, like if you want to talk about like do you believe like in the nuclear family? Like
yes,
that's a really new concept. Hundreds of thousands of years of bioevolution is us living like together
but
as like groups of
but
people like hunting for berries and like chasing animals down. Like
but
that's what
that
hundreds of
but,
thousands of years of
but that's
bioevolution have
what
gotten us.
but that's what built up to it. That's what built up to it.
Okay, well then fine. Then I could just use your same argument and say, well, that's building up to this then.
That's a good point. But the problem with that is you can't really come from that position because the way we are starting to do things now is totally the freaking opposite. And are we getting the results that we got with the previous things?
Well, I
Are we
mean,
getting good results now? Because
with respect
when
to
I
what?
look around, as far as the interaction between men and women, the way I see it when I look around at the interaction between men and women, there's something terribly wrong going on right now.
And with
For
yeah.
one, they've done studies. They've done studies that have proven not only women, but people in general are the most unhappy that they've ever been in the history of the world.
Mhm.
Specifically, women. They've done numerous studies on this. So if this new age way of us doing things, this new progressive way, because I'm a if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of guy. If this new age way of doing things is so freaking awesome, then why is everybody so miserable? Why do the men have such a high depression rate, a high deletion rate? Why are the women going to bed with a glass of wine? Why is everybody so unhappy? When we have the most, we live better today than we've ever lived in the history of the world, as far as our homes, as far as our the food that we can get, and everything else. Our quality of life is way better than it was in the 1920s or the 1950s, but we're the most unhappy. What's the reason for that?
Okay. I think these are all really good questions. But I just want you to think of like what you're saying. People are unhappy. We live better than we've ever lived before, but we're still miserable. Why is everybody so miserable? Our quality of life is better, but we're still miserable. Why are we so unhappy? We are the most unhappy we've ever been, okay? The framing on all of this is that it seems like all of us have problems right now. it's not just a man versus woman thing. It's not just something happening on the male side or the female side. It seems like there is something that is pushing people in a miserable direction. Now, I have my thoughts and ideas on that. I think a lot of it has to do with the internet and especially cell phones. And I think the way that we engage with all of that stuff is destroying our fucking minds. We're putting screens in front of people at like 3 years old and like ADHDing the fuck out of them before they've even stepped foot inside of a classroom. I think that we are like watching more content, like scrolling our phones constantly, that's like destroying our brain's ability to get like happiness and enjoyment out of like normal things in life. I think that we have a really hard time seeing people in real life because we're replacing all of our real life connections with online Discord group chats and everything. I think that these are all like really good things to talk about and understand. But when all of this gets shoehorned into like, well, the reason why we're so miserable is because we've stepped away from like traditional like boy-girl relationships or whatever. I feel like now instead of talking about all of that other stuff that I think is having a negative impact on all of us, we get hyper fixated on some really silly man versus woman gender dynamic when there are issues that are facing every single person in society today that's making all of us fucking miserable. That's my issue, I guess.
Well, I don't disagree with any of that, but I'll add one caveat. It's not that it's just about the gender roles, but that is part of it. That's part of it. We can look. I can sit here all day and we can talk about the negative impact of social media, the negative impact of putting a freaking screen in a 2-year-old's face, the negative impact of every new age thing that we have that has given us information overload. We can talk about that all day, but we can't ignore the fact that when you start playing with the gender roles in any society, and this has been studied over and over, this is not the first time we've had a society or a civilization where we began to play with the gender roles and it wreaked havoc. It caused problems with us because that is something that is part of us, regardless. In fact, you even did it yesterday. You even did it yesterday when we were having that discussion, that was heightened discussion. But towards the end of that discussion, you said, well, who's going to watch the kid if he's out working? And you said a woman. Now, why would you say a woman unless you still have gender roles burned into your brain?
Okay, I'm not here to say that all gender roles should be abolished, right? So in the beginning part of this conversation, I made the argument that there are differences between men and women that leave them suited towards other things, right? That's why I said that women seem to be excelling in classroom environments. I think yesterday you asked me the question: if every man were to disappear from the planet, things would fall apart. If every woman were to disappear from the planet, things would carry on as normal, which isn't true. But like,
well, no, I didn't.
Or maybe not carry on as normal, but society would still function or something, right?
Let me correct that. No,
okay,
what I said, and look, this is what I said. I said if women took a day off, not if they disappeared. I don't want to live in a world with no women. So let's just go ahead and get that clear. If they took a day off from their jobs. And the reason why I say that is because women tend to stay away from a lot of the heavy lifting jobs. A lot of the jobs that are, sure, you'll find a woman that's an airline pilot. You'll find a woman that wants to do construction, but that is few and far between. If the men decided one day to just take a day off, the guys that work at nuclear power plants, the guys that fly planes, the guys that pick up our trash, the guys that do all of the things that make our world run, it would cause a serious problem. That's what I say.
Sure. So what we're saying is like men do backbone of society jobs and women do complementary work, basically, right?
Yeah. More or less.
Yeah. But I think the important thing to recognize about that is the backbone jobs don't work without that complementary work. That's kind of what I'm saying, right? Like, let's say that a man, and this is why I used the family example yesterday, but it doesn't have to be a family example, it could be anything. But if men are off doing this backbone work, then you need somebody to take care of families. The only way that a man can go and do that work is if somebody can empower him to do it by staying home and taking care of, say, children, right? That's why I use that example, that even if men are doing the backbone work, they can only do it because of the complementary job that exists where women are allowing it to happen, essentially. It's like having a supervisor for a restaurant. The supervisor isn't cooking and bussing tables in the front, but like the employees wouldn't be able to manage themselves without somebody kind of like working things in the back. I don't mean to say that like women lead men. I'm just saying that the roles complement each other.
Well, here's the thing about that, which I didn't get to say yesterday. Number one, my position is not that men can be totally independent of women. That's not my position. Human beings are interdependent. We're all dependent upon each other. However, when you start looking at the dynamic of men and how men operate, it is extremely plausible that a man can go out here in the world, be successful without the support of a woman. Now, if you look at it as a whole, then yeah, you might be able to make a few points where it's like, oh, well, women do this job or that job, and that job might be beneficial or whatever to what the men are doing. But the job, a lot of those complementary jobs that women are doing, men could do. Okay, women just recently, you said something about the nuclear family recently, right? Just recently, a new thing, which it is a new thing, right? I would argue that it probably, well, I'm not going to go into that. That being a new thing, another new thing is women being in the workforce. That's fairly new.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. That's one of the ways that I think when I talk about women evolving, I think that's one of the things that's happened.
Okay, so guess what? Up to that point, we still had a functioning society. Up to that point, with the world still spun. Up to that point, we were still able to constantly improve. We were still able to get awesome inventions that have improved the human condition.
But post women entering the workforce, our world is better now in a lot of ways than it was 80 years ago. Yeah.
Our world is better now because it's naturally progressing. But how many impactful inventions have we had since we moved into this age of let's promote women? How many inventions have we had that have been as impactful as the cotton gin, the printing press, the steam engine?
Like the microprocessor and the cell phone and the internet are probably two of the biggest inventions in human history, I would say.
You just got through saying that the cell phone is what's causing the biggest problems. It's making us unhappy.
Sure, things can be used in bad ways. I mean, gunpowder was an amazing invention too, but it's mainly used to kill people. Are you asking me what the amazing inventions are? Or are you asking me the ones that make everybody feel better, right? Cell phones and computer architecture and the internet are like the biggest things that have accelerated everything in the world, like probably more than any other invention in human history, more than
nobody's disagreeing with that.
Well, sure, but you asked me, like, were there any big inventions since the cotton gin or whatever, now that we've had women in the workplace? And I think
no. What I said was, what are the inventions that we've had now that have been as impactful?
Sure, and I would argue that, like, cell phones and the internet have been some of the most impactful things ever in all of human history.
They've made an impact, but I wouldn't say the most impactful. There's no way that is as impactful, because if you look at the reason why I say
where are you from? Where do you live?
Where do I live?
Yeah.
I live in North Carolina.
Okay, I'm in Miami. I'm talking to you in real time. Both of us can see each other's videos, and there's like 10 or 20,000 people, and there's gonna be hundreds of thousands of more that watch on a YouTube channel later on. That type of reach,
awesome.
type of reach and communication, dude. The printing press, would never.
I'm not discounting that. That's awesome. But look, here's the thing: when you have the printing press, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you got the printing press. Cool. Now we can have books that are printed identically. We don't have to worry about people tampering with books, tampering with their information, right? However, the same way that somebody could use the printing press negatively, right? Mm-hmm. I would argue that, yes, the way we can communicate is awesome. We can reach a lot of people. But guess what? Any idiot can get up here and fire up a freaking live stream and just give the whole world a bunch of misinformation. Right or wrong. And then people will sit there and watch it because, like you said earlier, you got 2-year-olds that's got a screen in front of their face, right? Mm-hmm. But a 2-year-old, if you wrote a book that was an extremely negative book, like, I'm not gonna say that guy's name, but if you wrote a book that was extremely negative, you don't have to worry about. You could put it in front of a 2-year-old. He's not gonna be able to read it like that or even comprehend it. But if somebody's sitting up there on YouTube saying something crazy, and your kid, parents are not paying attention and the kid is watching it, that's an extremely negative impact. So the reason why, when I'm saying impactful, I mean impactful in a way that is more beneficial to human society than negative. That's what I'm saying.
Do you think that the internet or cell phones have been more negative than positive?
It's part of the reason we're having so many difficulties right now.
Sure, I mean, it might be part of it, but I mean, like, the more impactful and powerful the invention, the more good and the more bad it can do, right? Like
I agree to
nuclear,
that.
yeah, like nuclear research, gives us amazing reactors that can produce a lot of energy relatively cleanly, and it also gives us atomic weapons that could maybe end the entire world, right? And I feel like cell phones and the internet are similar. I'm 34. You seem like an older guy, maybe, or like around my age, or maybe a little older. But like, I remember growing up, like if you asked somebody a question about anything, you had to pull out the fucking Encyclopedia Britannica to like look up an answer. And now you have like the world's information is at your fingertips. That's an
But I think,
unbelievably crazy
but when,
advance in technology, right? Like that's the
but don't you think that I actually like reading my Encyclopedia Britannicas? Don't you think that's a little more organic? Don't you think that it's more valuable when you actually have to search for the knowledge as opposed to someone just Googling it and not knowing for sure if it's accurate?
maybe it could be, or there might be a lot of people that just don't do the search at all because they either don't have the books. Because if you had one of those sets of Encyclopedia Britannicas, you're paying like a lot of money for a good set of them, and then a lot of people just end up not knowing. I'm trying
I'll
so,
give you that.
not to like go too deep into this, but just circling back, like because you asked me what are like really impactful things. There've been really impactful things. We landed on the moon. We've got nuclear weapons. We've got the internet. I agree that these things can be good or bad. I'm just saying that they're impactful. It's like when Time chooses a person of the year. Like sometimes it's a really bad person, sometimes it's a good person. There's people that are impactful. When I look at like the big differences that women have right now compared to like 30 years ago, or maybe 60, 70 years ago, the two big things that have changed for women are like college and work, and then reproduction. I think those are like the two huge. Those are like 95% of what has changed women, and then like 5% can be like Instagram, social media, Kim Kardashian, whatever. But I think those two things have been huge because it's allowed women to put off having children by using birth control or whatever, and it's allowed women to live independently from men. They don't have to marry somebody to find a job. And when I look at these two things, I don't think these things are going away. We're not getting rid of birth control, and we're not removing women from work or from school. So given that, and Red Pillars say this all the time, right? We can't think of an idealized world. We've got to look at the world we live in. If that's the world we live in, then I don't think it's enough to tell men that you should just be a top 1%er and then you're going to get a woman, right? You have to find a way to adapt that the world we're in, where women have changed significantly in the past 30 or 40 years. So that's why I talk from that frame of reference. Women are educated. Women do have birth control. So if you want to get a woman, you've got to work harder for it now. Whereas in the past, all you had to do was like just actually work a job and you'd be basically guaranteed a wife.
Well, no, it's not. To me, and this is just my opinion. This is not going to be popular with everybody, but in my opinion, it's not about the men being top 1%ers. It's not even about taking away what women already have. Like, you can't put the cat back in the bag. That's not going to happen. My thing is, it's about carrying on a tradition of what works. I feel like in this day and age, we're just on this mission to dismantle everything that came before us, even if it worked.
I mean, so I don't necessarily disagree with you. So progressives or people really far on the left have a habit of wanting to dismantle everything without asking why it was the way that it was, right? So you'll have people on the left saying things like, oh, like gender roles are all fake. But it's like, okay, well, we've had like 10,000 years of them. Like, are they really that fake? So I agree with you that there are some traditions that, even if we don't carry them on, we at least need to understand like where they came from. But the world is changing. Even the way that our traditions, show themselves in society changes. And I think that if you don't want to get left behind by the world, like you have to change along with it. Like some things are probably here to stay, like some type of gendered dynamic in society. Like men and women are different. We're never going to be the exact same. That's never going to happen. But some things will change pretty dramatically, like maybe the way some of those gender roles play out or how dating plays out, and you either adapt or die. And that is the only thing you can do, because like you said before, it's not going back in the box of women not having reproductive rights and of women not working jobs. Like that's not going to change. So you have to figure out a way moving forward as a man, I think.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. while we're in this country, and the men in this country, the men in the West, are practicing this sort of new age of enlightenment, would you say that men of other countries are doing the same, or would you say that they're pretty much sticking to the traditional construct of what a man is?
I think the West got here first, but I think other countries are slowly starting to go through the same processes that we did. Like, we're just the trailblazers, but they're definitely following suit. So, like, if you go to like the Middle East, the men are going to be quite a bit more traditional. But like even in Saudi Arabia, as of a few years ago, women can drive. If you go to really older countries or places where the roles are a lot older, you're gonna find pretty traditional men. But you'll find that like their birth rates are dropping off. They're not having a ton of children because they're not all dying, to dysentery or some random shit. You will find that like the rest of the world is slowly following in our footsteps, and that seems to be a trend that's not going to change anywhere. Like, I don't know any place that's like we are super successful and we have stuck with our traditional roles and nothing has changed. Like, all the most successful countries have been moving in this direction, and I can't think of any like counter examples to that.
Well, the thing about it is there are countries that, I'm pretty sure you pay attention to politics. There are countries that have made it a point to make for certain that they don't have certain things on their television shows and they don't have certain literature and things of that nature. What I see, in my personal opinion, I see China, I see Russia, I see India making it a point to make sure that they continue to raise traditional men. And when I say traditional men, I mean the more for lack of a better phrase, the John Wayne, no nonsense type of guy. And I believe that they're doing that so that they can actually build stronger militaries. So I'll pose the question to you that I asked the guy last night that came onto my show. Do you think that the 18-year-olds of our country would be able to storm the beaches of Normandy today?
If they had to, I think you can. I feel like the circumstances create the people to some extent. I think that when you think of like an average 18-year-old today, you think of a guy with blue hair that's like crying on a college campus because he got triggered by something or some shit, right? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure like a lot of people think that, but I think that like if our country were under legitimate threat, or if we had to go and like fight somewhere, like we could do it, right? I mean, like, compare, for instance, like Russia's invasion into Ukraine, which has been a disaster for Russia. Compare that to our invasion into Iraq. Now, whether you agreed or disagreed with that invasion, okay, I'm pretty sure fucking Saddam was gone in like 2 fucking weeks. So, like, we can say, like, yeah, like, okay, well,
no comment.
Okay, sure. But we can say that, like, okay, well, our people are weak, but, like, when our military has to do shit, like, shit gets done, like, very fucking quickly. And a lot of that is on the backs of, like, technological improvement and the sophistication of our military today. Like, we don't need, I mean, like, in a way, that's a good example you bring up because, like, we don't need people to storm a beach and run in and just get mowed down by machine guns anymore. Like, the world has evolved. I don't know if you watch, like, that combat footage subreddit, but Jesus Christ, people are fucking flying around drones today, just, like, dropping grenades onto people and killing them. Like, it's insane how much the technology has changed for all of that. I think that when you look at places like China and India, I had a guy talk to me about this recently because he got really mad because somebody brought up a similar point that like, oh no, China is very traditional. I think that when you are stuck in like a very developing area and all you can do is like eat, sleep, work, and that's all you've got, then yeah, you're not going to have many like people aren't going to be talking about like, you know, transgender people when they're just trying to fucking survive, right? You're not going to see marches for LGBT rights in you know, in places where the people are struggling just to get enough food on the table. I agree with you there. But as places in India and China have gotten more successful, as their median incomes have grown, there is a lot of social dissatisfaction in some of these places, whether it's pushing for more gay people to be represented in areas, or whether it's pushing for, right now it's usually representation of government, but there's like this hierarchy of stuff that you push for, where like if you're developing, you're fighting for like, I need fucking food and water. Then it's like, I need good job opportunities. Then it's like, I need representation of my government. I don't want to live in a fucking authoritarian regime. And then once you've got that shit out of the way, then it's like, okay, I think that women should have more rights. I want to talk about LGBT issues. But like when you're still working on that like foundational shit, yeah, you're not going to see much in the terms of like what we fight about for social issues in the West, right? But I mean, to some extent, that I think that's a marker of our progress. Like in some ways, it's really annoying when somebody goes on Twitter and they're like, I encountered a lot of sexism today because like somebody called me a bitch. But in other ways, it's actually really cool because it's like, okay, cool. Well, you in your mind, really bad sexism is somebody calling you a bitch. That's a mark of progress, in my opinion, because it means there's a whole bunch more sexism that you're not experiencing that people in the past did.
Well, I'm a traditional guy, so I'm not really into the progressive stuff and all of that because I feel like when we get to the point where we allow, like, human beings having a imagination is awesome, but I feel like sometimes we've become so successful. It's kind of like what Bane said in The Dark Knight. Success has defeated us. Like, I feel like we start going into, when you start looking at intersectionalism, which I don't want to get into a huge debate about that, because I don't want to get I guess canceled. But when you look at intersectionalism, the reason why there's so much conflict there, the reason why there's so much conflict in this country when you have these discussions and these debates and stuff, is because we're starting to get off into the weeds with certain ideas and certain ideologies. And it would be one thing if people lived their lives and didn't try to force their lifestyle or force their ideology onto everyone. But that's exactly what we live in nowadays. In fact, we live in a society now where if you're a traditional person, if you believe in certain things, like, let's say for argument's sake that you're a religious person, let's say that you're a Christian, let's say that you believe in the nuclear family, let's say that you uh believe in just being a regular guy with a regular wife and children, you're under attack today by all of the people that are like, oh, you're old fashioned and that's not progressive. And we have to be understanding of this group and that group. You're literally under attack. Like, most men that are traditional men are constantly getting a finger wagged in their face. That's the reason why the whole red pill concept and, the manosphere, whether it's the white one or the black one, that's the entire reason it exists, because men feel that they're being marginalized, ostracized from society, and treated like they're just innately toxic. And that's wrong.
So, I again, there are a lot of things that you're agreeing with, or that you're saying that I agree with. I just don't think that they're that gendered. When you talk about like getting off into the weeds with certain ideologies and attacking people for not believing in the right things, I think we do have a big problem with that today in society. I think a lot of it comes from the left kind of having their thumbs on a lot of the levers of cultural power. But I just don't think it's like a gendered thing. That's like a political, ideologically driven thing. Now, when you talk about like men are traditional men and they're getting fingers wagged in their faces, I don't agree with that. I don't think that's happening. I feel like people mix up a lot of the toxic aspects of red pill shit with like traditional things. If you're a good guy, you're working a good job, you go to church, and you're looking for like a traditional partner, and you've got your shit handled, I don't think anybody's wagging their finger at you. In fact, because I've talked to a lot of conservative women, I think conservative women are dying to find men like that. But oftentimes, one of the biggest complaints that I hear, and I know men have the loudest voices online, so you hear about like all the whores and sluts and blah, blah, blah. When I talk to traditional women or conservative women, their complaints are always like, I have no fucking idea where you can ever find a good conservative man. They don't exist. It's a bunch of schizoid young men that sit in their basements, play computer games all day, and fantasize about like having a harem of 50 women they fuck, like the guys on Fresh and Fit tell them to do, right? Like I don't feel like places in the manosphere are producing these factories of like good, positive, solid young men that are like good conservative men, because their engagement with religion is really bad. Look at fucking I don't want to go down that whole Andrew Tate route if you don't want to, but like Andrew Tate coming out as Islamic after fucking running a casino and a cam business is like the two biggest, most haram fucking things you can do in Islam, right? Or like a lot of these guys saying we need to embrace more like Christian values while telling you to have one-ended open relationships where you're fucking younger and younger women every year. I don't think that these are the centers of society that are going to be creating the like the traditional conservative man of tomorrow. It's just like the new marketing ploy that's being sold, and then all these guys that are falling into this shit. I call it OnlyFans for men, because it's just like it's rotting and destroying their minds, thinking that or leading them into thinking they're going to be something that they're never going to be, and it's not preparing them for the future in a way that I think a conservative person would be.
Well, I can't really speak for the whole space, but I do know that the vast majority of the guys that watch my show on a regular basis are those traditional type guys. Now, granted, a lot of them are already married, a lot of them are already in relationships, but what they find is here's the issue that they find. Let me break it down for you. What's happening is when they go out into the world and attempt to live a traditional life, they're constantly being told, these guys are constantly, meeting barriers trying to live a traditional life. Now, when they go out here, I don't know where these conservative, traditional women that you're talking about are. I don't know where they congregate, but these are the complaints that guys give to me, that they have so much difficulty finding these type of women, especially in black culture. In black culture, we have an issue where there's this culture of promiscuity. There's this culture of the slut walk and all of those different type of things, where every single woman they encounter is part of the sexual revolution. So they're gonna be a little more free sexually, and that's a nice way of putting it. So when these guys are out here actually looking for marriageable women, they're coming up short. They can't find any, because part of the new age way of thinking is that women should be able to do the things that men have traditionally done. And the sad part is, whenever you hear that, it's always women taking the most negative things of men and then touting that as empowerment. This is what the guys are encountering on a regular basis, where the women, they want to do the same things, they want to have the same equality as men, which is fine, but they don't want the same accountability, the same responsibility. It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, if you're willing to be in the right, have you heard of this? I know you've heard the saying. Have you heard of the saying, dress for the job that you want?
Yeah.
Yeah. The idea is like, you should carry yourself through life like you're where you want to be, because that's how you're going to find that place, essentially, right? I'll hear people say this, like, I don't know where to find conservative women. And then you like ask them, well, where are you looking? And they're like, well, I've tried Tinder, I've gone on Bumble, I've gone on Hinge. And it's like, okay, do you go to a church? Like, do you have a community of like conservative friends? Have you been involved in any political or community organizing? Because like, especially in the black community, right? Like, women are like the backbones of all of these things. And if you're looking for conservative people and you're in those areas, you'll find them there. But I feel like people aren't setting themselves up in a conservative lifestyle. Like, if you tell me you're looking for a conservative woman and you're not part of your local church, like, Jesus, that's like the number one place to start, right? Because these are where, off of churches, are where all of your community building activities are going to stem from. Every church has a bulletin board where people are doing things. A lot of churches are involved in like community outreach. You can volunteer. You meet a ton of people this way. But people aren't willing to go out and look for it. Yeah, but I feel like in terms of that type of advice, I never hear red pillars talking about that. It's always like the sexual marketplace and high value men are these things you have to do to exploit the dynamics of the evolutionary psychology of women so that you can fuck as many women as possible, and that's why you're gonna be 1%. And like, that's the message I hear over and over and over and over and over again. Rather than like, look up your local archdiocese, start going to your church every Sunday, and when church ends, everybody's chatting with each other, because that's what they do. Sometimes the priest or whatever will come out and talk to people, and you just like talk to people and you meet friends that way. Like, that's how you organically grow out a group of friends. But I don't hear that advice ever in the manosphere. I never hear that.
I hate the reason why you never hear that in the manosphere is because the biggest hoes usually go to church. They're usually the most promiscuous. They're usually the most trifling. Like, guys wish it was that easy. They could just go to church and find a good wholesome girl at church. They can't. That's usually where the worst ones are at.
On average, do you think the women in church are going to be more promiscuous, or like women that are like at a bar or a club?
Bro, they do the same thing.
So every woman everywhere, there are no more conservative women.
They're twerking. They're twerking in church. When you look at the black community, the vast majority of the men don't even go to church anymore. They've checked out, and the reason why they checked out is because of the ridiculousness that's going on in the church. You got the Baptist preacher actually having sex with women in the congregation. You've got women actually twerking in church. You've got the single mothers sitting on the front pew of the church. Like, the church, especially in the black community, I can't speak for the white community, but in the black community, the church is lost, bro. It's done.
Where are all of these single moms coming from?
Where are they coming from?
Yeah.
Well,
if the church is fucked because it's all like single moms and people like it seems like it takes two to tango, right? Like it can't just be all on black women,
Well,
right?
actually, no, it does. Actually, no, it doesn't take two to tango. And the reason why is because what's going on in the black community is you have a large group of women that are actually having sex with multiple men, having children with multiple men. You actually have twice as many women in the black community have children as the men. Twice as many.
Yeah, but why is that?
I
There are
mean,
some
there's
cities where there's
a
like 3 black women for every 1 man that's
there,
not in
there's
jail,
a
right? Like I mean, like they're
there,
depending on the city that you live in, the availability for some of these black women to even find a guy, the
there's a
competition is
number
fierce.
there's a number of factors. The competition is very fierce, and there's a number of reasons for that. Number one, we have a small percentage of the population. Black women, last time I checked, outnumbered the men by about 3 or 4 million, something crazy like that. Part of the reason is because of Planned Parenthood. In our community, they actually go to Planned Parenthood to the tune of 367,000 per year. That's 1,000 every day. So that already right there, you have a lower population of just black people in general due to that. In addition to that, there has been an issue with mass incarceration thanks to good old Joe Biden with the 94 crime bill. So you have a lot of brothers that are locked up. So that diminishes the amount of black men as well. In addition to that, you have the cultural problem of black women not being very easy to get along with and not being easy to cohabitate with. So you have black men who seek relationships outside of the black race, outside of the country, with the passport bros, with SYSBM, all of those different things. So then you end up with an even lower amount. And what happens is you have black women out here that are more prone to deal with what people call the Pookies and the Ray Rays, and they'll go out here and they'll have kids, they'll have children with 1, 2, maybe even 3 different men. And the reason why that is because it's been incentivized by our government. Unfortunately, a lot of these women are doing that in order to supplement their lifestyle with welfare, food stamps, child support, all of those different things. There's a bunch of different factors that weigh into that.
Okay, for whatever we want to blame black women for this, black men are just as culpable, right? We can complain about the mass incarceration from the 93 crime bill all we want, but Joe Biden doesn't make somebody sell weed. Joe Biden doesn't make somebody carry an unregistered firearm. Joe Biden doesn't make somebody a gangbanger. Like, these are choices that are still being made, that are being made by black men that fuck over black women in the community. And I think that the cultural problems stem from a lot of the kind of like dysfunction that goes back and forth there. I don't think it's fair to blame black women on everything. Like,
Okay,
we can talk about like food stamps and welfare and all that too, but that exists for black people and white people and every other type of person in the United States. But it seems like the black community has like a special problem with it, right?
Well, hold on. No, when we're talking about that, there are things that are very specific. Okay, one book written by what is her name? Elizabeth Hinton, who I think went to Yale. I think she's a professor in African American studies at either Yale or I think Yale, if I'm not mistaken. She wrote From the War on Poverty to the War on Crime. And she pointed out through her research, right after you get the 65 Voters' Rights Act, you actually have a overhauling of the criminal justice system where they started policing urban areas more heavily. This is right after the Industrial Revolution, where you have black people migrating into the urban centers. You have them policing them more heavily. Okay, you actually have what is the equivalent of today billions of dollars funneled into that criminal program. I forgot the name of it, but the purpose was to create probation officers, all of these different things to create a revolving door in the criminal justice system, which has affected the black community significantly. So yeah, it's wrong for any black man to go out here and commit crimes and do things that he doesn't have any business. But it has been historically proven over and over again that black men have been disproportionately targeted by the criminal justice system, especially with particular crimes. When you have certain narcotics that black men get a harsher sentence for, whereas other groups of men might get a slap on the wrist, or even worse when it comes to unaliving somebody. More often than not, when a white guy goes to jail for unaliving somebody, they end up getting a manslaughter charge as opposed to second degree or whatever degree or whatever. Now, I'm not trying to play the victim Olympics. I'm just stating the facts. Like, any of this can be looked up. It's the research is out there.
Yeah,
So it's
I
not
agree.
just not just that black men are just like, oh, we're gonna go to prison or whatever. Like, right around the time that they overhauled the welfare program in 90 in freaking 96, not 96, in 65 and 66, you see a rise in single parent households. You see a rise in single parent households. You had a number of things that occurred that affect that. You had the emergence of the prison industrial complex. You're just coming out of the Vietnam War, which a lot of black men lost their lives to that. And now you have this welfare program where if you have a man in the house, one of the stipulations is you don't qualify for those particular things, which is unfortunate because during that time you had a really serious problem with poverty. So there's a number of factors that play into all of that.
So to preface this, I just will comment as a small jab. I think it's funny that you're citing a woman who is a historian who went to Yale. So historians are important, right?
That is funny. That's hilarious.
Yeah, sure. That book, America on Fire, I think, or the Poverty One or whatever, right? But regardless of that, everything you said might be true, but none of that is black women's fault. I just don't think it's fair to blame black women. Like, you can't blame black women for men being incarcerated. When police are policing these areas, black men are the ones that are engaging in the crime. The black women aren't. And I guess it just feels a little shitty to blame black women when at the end of the day, they're the ones that get saddled with all of the community responsibility. They've got to be the backbone of like all these families, of all these churches, of all these things that are like the only way these communities function are on the backs of these like single black women moms. And then say, well, hold on, let me finish. And then for black men to turn around and say, well, we got policed really heavily, and so we got caught selling drugs, and that's why you guys are all single moms, and that's why your lives are fucked up. But it's black women's fault for everything that happens in the black community. Okay. I think there's a lot of fault that could be evenly doled out to both sides, is what I'd say. I wouldn't blame black women for it.
Okay, here's the thing with this, all right? There is so much nuance in all of that. Mm-hmm. One, you have a lot of guys that were caught selling drugs that weren't selling drugs, okay? You have a lot of guys that had issues where they got pulled over and, oh, surprise, there's drugs in the car. Where did that come from? Okay, so that's one thing. There's nuance like that. Doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. All right. Then on top of that, when you're talking about it's not the black women's fault, black women are willing participants in a system that they actually know for a fact is disproportionately prejudiced to their group of men. Okay, they know this. This is not a game. They go to these offices knowing that they can actually take advantage of this system by, oh, I'm in a relationship with a black man who ain't hitting on nothing and don't want to work and blah, 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 all of those different things. So we can't ignore that. We can't ignore that. Now, to sit here and say, oh, it's all black women's fault. I never said it was all black women's fault, but there is a large percentage of black women who have been incentivized to have children out of wedlock. They've been incentivized to utilize a system that they know benefits them. And they do this on a regular basis.
Okay, just as a quick, on a regular basis. Do you really believe that there's like people out there that are like, I want to have a kid so I get welfare?
Yes. I don't believe it. I know it. I don't believe it. I know it.
Why do
I know my culture?
Why do black women do this, but not white women or Indian women or Asian women or other people?
Well, I don't know if white women do this or not. A lot of white women on welfare too. I can't speak for white women because I'm not part of that. I'm not part of that culture, but I know what I grew up around. I've heard the conversations amongst women. I've heard the things that they've said. One of the issues that I point out in my show, which is a real issue during the time where Gen Xers were younger and you had the boomer parents, you had this switch like you talked about earlier where the women started going into the workforce more and going to get their education more. Well, one of the things that happened is a lot of the boomer women would use their daughters to help them with the housework. So when mom goes off to work or whatever, her daughter is helping raise the siblings. And what I've had a lot of women tell me, a lot of black women tell me, and I know it's anecdotal, but I've had a lot of women tell me one of their escapes was to have sex, have a child with a guy, because then she can get Section 8 or she can get public housing, and now she can move out and get the hell away from her mama's house where her mother's forcing her to cook, clean, and do all of the housework. And they feel like slaves.
I would have to I hate to be like a nerd and be like, we should look up the stats, but like people don't. This, like, there might be some people that do this, but like single moms don't live glorious lives. Like, it sucks. Being a single mom sucks. You can get all the fucking welfare in the world, but nobody's living like a queen on Section 8 housing. But right?
No,
but I'm just saying, I don't think people are choosing like, oh, like, I'm going to finally move out of my mom's house by having a kid and getting welfare. I don't think people are making choices like that. I think it might happen, and then people collect welfare afterwards.
No, they actually are, because you don't. Here's the thing, because this is what you're not getting. It's not a choice that they're making because it's the best choice, in the sense that when I do this, I'm going to have an awesome life. You're already dealing with a group of people who are already at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder.
If this was true, why do black women do abortions more than any other group of people? Shouldn't they be having the most children then to take advantage of all the welfare?
Because there's numerous reasons for that too. For one, you have some women that genuinely don't really want to have kids. They like the party lifestyle. But the ones that do, they want to have those kids by a specific guy. Okay? Because some guys are going to bring more benefits than others. Okay? When it comes to child support, there are chicks out here in the black community, they'll get pregnant by a guy. If a chick gets pregnant by a guy that just enlisted in the military, she's not deleting that baby. It ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen, because she knows that's definite child support. And look, this is not something that everybody talks about in polite society, but it's something that goes on a regular basis. I know this for a fact. I've had these experiences. Numerous men that I know have had these experiences. When I talked about this the other night on my show, there was a guy, Adam, that was telling me that, well, that's not true. I don't believe that. And then I literally had a black woman come onto my show and say, yes, her family has even told her to do that, because she's in her 20s. She doesn't have any children. And at one point she needed a place to stay or whatever. And she said that the women in her family was basically scolding her. You need to go out here and find a guy that you don't really like that, get pregnant by him so that you can get all of the benefits that we get. They do this. I know it sounds crazy, but they do this. This is one of the things that the men in my culture have been constantly complaining about. And it's being treated like we're delusional.
Well, I don't know. I mean, to complain about it as a guy, just use birth control, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the smart guys out here, look, if you look at black guys out here, the smart guys, they're not out here getting a bunch of women pregnant. They're not.
Well, but how are they getting pregnant?
Because there's literally 3 guys in Tennessee right now that have a total of 86 children by 34 different women. There are guys out here that have 10 children by 5 different women. There are guys out here, like, when you go look at the CDC stats, when it comes to the deadbeat dads, that actually represents a small percentage of the black male population. It's about 8%, right? So what's happening is you have a number of women that are basically having children with multiple guys, but it's a very small percentage of the male population. It's not all of us. So what's happening is you end up with these guys out here, and I can't name how many times I've heard this, and it's crazy. I didn't even know it was a reality. But I myself only have 3 children by 1 woman, right? So you have these guys out here that'll be like, yeah, my dad had 19 kids.
Why? Okay, then if women are choosing, if black women are choosing to get pregnant for the welfare and all that shit and child support, none of these women are getting child support then, if there's one guy knocking up like 30 fucking women, right? So why would they even do this? Why would they make these choices? Because
the way that system is structured, right? Even if you can't extract child support out of the guy, right, there are still numerous programs that you can get. I know a woman that had I think she has like, I think she has like 10 children. Habitat for Humanity gave her a house.
Yeah, but do you think that's
Literally,
norm? But that's not the norm, right?
it's it's not the norm.
That people are getting free houses for having kids in black communities? No, I don't think so.
That's not the norm. Okay. Look,
Well, here I'm
here's the thing.
curious. How many? If we, and I'm not trying to like, I need like 52.8%. I don't need like an exact stat, but like, how many women do you think in the black community that get pregnant? How many of them, like what, like roughly, what percentage of them are just like looking for a welfare check? Like, just so I can get an idea of like where you think the scale is.
I could tell you how many are pregnant out of wedlock, which I think is a little above 70 some percent. But so far as their motive, that would be a little harder to pin down. Because I'm not saying that all of them. What I'm saying is that is a cultural trend. And the reason why it's a trend is because you have women that will school their daughters to do that.
Yeah, I guess I'm just
Literally.
curious because like I'm sure it's happened. I'm not gonna tell you it's never happened, but I'm just
Mhm.
curious like where you think like do you think this is like 2% of the community, which would be pretty fucked up, or do you think it's like 50% of the community that's like super fucked up? Like yeah, I'm just curious what you think like the number is, and then
I've,
I'll do
I've
research on it later. I'll try to look it up, I guess.
I've literally never thought about, because where would you get a census for that? Where
Well,
who's
yeah,
gonna
but the
admit
issue is
that?
that, like, yeah, I guess the issue is that you're content to blame, or it feels like it. Maybe I'm getting a bad rating, you correct me, but it feels like you're content to blame the majority of the black community's problems on black women. But then you're relying on a lot of, like, I know a woman that told me this, I've got a friend that's done that, like, and it's like, okay, but how do you know that this is representative of the black community as a whole? Or how do you know that, like, in different towns or cities, like, this is how it works everywhere? Like, it seems like numbers or census data on that would be pretty important.
The reason why I know it is because every single time there's an issue with Section 8. Right now, recently they just had an issue with Section 8 where a lot of the landlords in Atlanta have stopped taking Section 8. So guess what? Black women are all across social media crying about it.
Well, but
One
that what
time
does that show? I mean, like, if you genuinely need the assistance, of course you're going to cry about it, right?
But no, it's not. It's some that genuinely need the assistance, but it's a lot that continue to live on it. These are people that live on the system the majority of their life. They're not using it in the sense that they're supposed to use it for. Where, oh, I'm down bad, I have some issues, let me use this so that I can get on my feet. They're not doing that. What they're doing is they're looking and finding loopholes to continue to be on that system perpetually. That's the problem.
I, I
That's the
I mean,
problem.
like, I mean, if you have a kid, you're going to be on the system. If you're a single mom, of course you will be, right? You're not going to try to like get out of like Section 8 housing or assistance for your child if you're a single mom and your kid turns like 3 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't see that like I don't see like single moms looking for assistance from the government uh, as like a
Well,
negative thing.
here's the thing. Hold on one second. I got my guy Patriarchy here. I'm gonna bring him up. I didn't just want to bring him up and have you feel like I'm ambushing you or whatever, but
Yeah, knock yourself out.
I know he wanted to get a piece of the conversation.
What's going on,
Patriarchy,
man?
what's
What's
going on,
going
man?
on, man? Let me ask you a question, right? Uh Destiny, you said um you can't blame, I guess, the failures on the black community on black women. Is that what you said? Can you refresh that for me
Yeah,
or
I don't
what?
think you can't like blame all the failures of the black community on black women. I don't think that's fair.
What about blaming the majority?
I don't think that's fair either, especially when it comes
Why
to
not?
child making, because it takes two to tango. It's men and women.
Correct. Correct, right? But the thing is, if you're telling me that in certain parts of the world, as you said, they outnumber men 3 to 1, why would you not then at least, I'm not saying blaming is going to do anything, but why would you not say that there's some responsibility for what it is that they're doing?
Well,
Also, the
because the
fact that,
question, wait, let me just answer that. Because the question is, why do they outnumber men 3 to 1? It's because a lot of the guys are getting locked up.
okay, and I think that that is the man's fault as well, right?
Sure.
But in general, even outside of the men that are being locked up, there's 1 million more black women than there are black men, right? And in your earlier statements, you said that they were the backbone of the community. If you have a backbone of a community and the community is failing, then I think you have some ability to place responsibility on what you said that backbone was.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, they're not the backbone because women want to be the leaders of the black community. But that's essentially what's happened in a lot
Really?
of these
Tell,
communities.
tell that to the squad that women don't want to be the leaders of the black community. It looks, as you said before, they're doing better in school. They're certainly making all the steps to become
Yeah,
those
they do
leaders.
because they have to, because black men have failed them.
Okay.
Because
I
black
Right.
men are
disagree with
looking
that.
back to
Oh,
legislation from 30 years ago saying Biden put drugs
really?
in my car. I had to
Yeah.
carry a gun. Like all of these communities that are being policed have just as well, like we said earlier, there's more black
Yeah.
women than black men in these communities. Black women aren't selling
Correct.
drugs. Black women aren't killing each other in the streets. Black women aren't, getting fucked with drugs like Biden made them to do it.
Well,
So to say that
they
like
do.
black women are the fault because
Yeah.
they're the backbones of these communities that are really rough to manage because black men have like fallen on themselves so much. I just think it's
Yeah.
fair to say that like, well, the problem is black women because they have to step up to try to manage these communities.
But it's, as you said before, it takes two to tango. So if you're gonna, why don't you share responsibility in that blame? I don't disagree with you, right? I personally think Biden's crime bill was very effective in terms of lowering crime. But what I'm saying is that if I go to a community and you make up the majority voter base, right? Also, another reason why I think that the blame should be at least somewhat at somebody's feet is because who's consuming most of that welfare spending?
Yeah, well, it would make sense if black women are because black men run from their families, right?
Oh,
So of course.
No,
But
that is.
but also
Whoa,
real
whoa,
quick
whoa.
when you say I just want to be really
Time out.
clear. Wait, you can answer that and I just want to be really quick. I'm not going to say black women are blameless. I'm just saying
Yeah,
that like
that's
the responsibility should be shared. It's probably a 50-50 thing because for every black man that stepped on a black woman after getting her pregnant, there's a black woman that fucked a black dude before getting married or deciding to use birth control, right? So I think there's equal blame there, but I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that it's like most of it goes on black women. I said there's like 50-50
Well,
shared
here's the
responsibility.
thing.
is-
Here's the thing. No, because you said something. We gotta clear that up.
Yeah,
Black
sure.
men do not. Black men do not run from their families. That's not. That is a total misnomer. And that is a that is something that has been pushed for a very long time, and it is not accurate. As I stated before, when you go back to the 70s, you start to see black men leaving the households for numerous reasons. It wasn't just because they just decided, oh, you know what, I don't want to be a father. That's not true. They actually came out with a study, and the CDC numbers disproved that. So let's
Wait,
stop
CDC
it.
numbers
Black-
disproved what? The black
It
household
disproved-
having
it
single moms
disproved-
is not like a myth.
No, I didn't say that. What I'm talking about is nowadays black fathers are actually in their children's lives more than any other demographic, even if they're not in the household. So if we're
No,
talking
come on,
about,
that's not
no,
true.
Go look it up.
I have looked it up. I know exactly
CDC.
I know exactly the
CDC,
fucking PDF. Yeah,
look it up.
what they do is they do a whole bunch of like really clever number games to basically try to say that. I remember reading this thing, the truth about black fatherhood, and then it goes into stereotypes of black fathers. What they try to say is that like of the fathers that are absent in their child's lives, black fathers tend to be more involved than the other people that are uninvolved in their children's lives. But as a whole, for like whose fathers are more involved in their children's lives, the black community is the worst. Now, of the ones that are uninvolved, maybe the uninvolved or maybe the black fathers that are out of the household are a bit better than like the white and the Asian and Indian and the Indian fathers that are out of the household. But as a whole, well, wait, hold on. You can't tell me that like it's so wait, real quick. Let me just finish real quick. You can't tell me in one breath that I look around and I see all women are having children because I've got two friends that told me this for welfare. And then in the next breath say, well, I'm gonna cite this like very esoteric analysis to prove that black men are just as involved with their children as everybody else when everybody in the United States knows that's not true.
Yes, I can, because look, okay, first of all, what everybody in the United States knows is true is a whole other story, especially considering the fact that you have an entire media system that has spent the past 70 years dogging black men, which is another reason why we're talking so much shit nowadays. This is the whole reason that channels like mine exist, to speak truth to power and tell what's really going on, as opposed to the narrative that's being pushed that black men are just sorry. First and foremost, it doesn't matter how many women are on welfare. It does not mean that the fathers are not in their lives. I was in my child's life, and my kid's mother still went and got welfare. So that's not true.
Yeah. I do
not
think
true.
that I do think that when you're talking about fathers running out, right? I do think that you're not really taking note of the court system, and they really don't have a choice when 90% of custody is going to be awarded to the woman.
Yeah, but that's because the women are the ones taking care of the kids.
How
Black
do you know
fathers,
that?
because
They're not.
we
How do you
this
know that?
we're hold on. So let me just clearly state it. So you guys think that black fathers are being kept out of their child's lives because of the courts?
I think there are some.
Okay,
Right?
wait, hold on.
If you
Some,
have
when
a
you say
system,
some, like 40% or 1%? I need you to quantify that for me.
well, I can quantify that 90% of custody is awarded to women.
Okay, and I can quantify that less than 48% of black women get child support because their baby daddies don't even pay it. So I'm asking you, when we have an epidemic of single mother black families, do you think that most of those black men are being kept out because of custody arguments with judges?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's
I can
that's
say
delusional.
over, I can
That's
say
delusional.
over 50, but when you look at the ratio. When you literally have a system that will award a woman custody 90% of the time, you can't say every single time it was the man that didn't want to be there. The men don't have a choice when you know if you go into something you're going to lose 90% of the time.
The reason why women are awarded custody most of the time is because women are usually the ones taking care of the kids.
It's by choice.
That's not true.
That's not true at
Of
all.
course.
true.
Wait, hold on.
That's
You're
not
telling
true.
me.
There's
Let me hear that. You think
there's
that men and
actually-
women in the black community take care of children at home equally? That it's just as likely for the woman to work or the man to work, and both of them are just as likely to be
First of all,
taking care of the
okay,
children.
What I'm saying is that the
Okay,
court
wait.
system.
Let me say this. First of all, the women are not taking care of the children. Most of these children are wards of the state. They may as well be. The state is taking care of those children. The food stamps is feeding them. Section 8 in public housing is putting a roof over their head. These women are not doing anything except presiding over these children. Not to mention the fact that there is an epidemic in the black community of children being abused. And if you go look up the stat on that, the majority of the time that they're being abused is when they're in the custody of their mothers. I just recently did a story about a mother who literally deleted her child. And when the police arrested her for it, she confessed. The reason why I did it is because she loved her daddy more. Literally, she confessed.
I can't.
This is not even my opinion.
I can't argue with like the stories you give me. Like I can give you one story for every other story that you've got. I can't argue with that. If you think the majority of black men aren't in their households of their children because of like judges, I don't like. You could never give that. No, there's no stat. There's no way you could ever spread. That's just an insane.
What I can do is I can look at where custody is being awarded. I can look at where the welfare money is being distributed. Right. I can look at, so for example, even what you said earlier about women getting houses, I can look up something as simple as Section 8 vouchers. You're making it seem like these women are just, that they just had to do this hard job of taking care of their child. If it wasn't for Section 8 welfare, food stamps, and a court system, you don't know what would happen.
Well, yeah, because working and taking care of a kid at the same time is not possible. You need help. You can't do that as a single parent. So when you say, where is the welfare money going? Probably going to the people that have the child, which is going to be the mothers, of course. But Section 8 and food stamps is not.
Who's giving the mother the child?
I mean, both of them are, right?
We just said that the court system 90% of the time gives the child to who?
Why do you think 90% of the time the mother is getting the child?
Because I think our court system has a bias towards giving children to women and ruling against men.
So I just want to hear this so it can be stated because it's ridiculous. You think that at least 50% of those black men would have fought to keep their children over the mom. You think that?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know what to say.
I think if those black men,
I'm totally clueless. You guys are lying to make a point.
Hold on a second. If those black men would have been armed with daddy government to get Section 8 welfare, food stamps, WIC, PPP loans, tax write-offs, or whatever, right? Look, anybody can take care of a kid if you give them all that stuff. And then when you have the court system ruling that you're going to get the child 90% of the time, the men are automatically from the rip eliminated.
Okay, so how do you square this away? And maybe you don't agree with the ANGRYMAN who said this, or maybe the ANGRYMAN wants to amend a statement.
Yeah.
How do you square this away with the fact that it's only like a few black men are knocking up like 50 women? Like you're telling me those men, if it's only a few men that are fucking over all of the women giving the babies, are those guys just trying to find a kid that they can eventually keep, or what's going on there? Would that guy want to keep every child, or what?
No, those are the deadbeats. That's why I cited that stat. 8%. Those are the deadbeat guys. No guy of any value is going to try.
Let me say something. The difference is, right, that those men don't get handouts from the government and sympathy from people such as yourself when they do those things.
Wait, but you could.
But when women, so you're telling me there's a massive amount, those men get, the type of men that do that get Section 8 as much as women?
If you have a child, isn't the Section 8 qualification only based on income? And then you also get the same tax write-off. You get the same.
Look at how it's being distributed.
No, you can't ask me how it's being distributed, because if more women are single moms than more dad are single dads, then of course more women are getting Section 8. Of course.
Who gives the child to the mom?
The moms are taking care of it. How many of these guys have left before the kid is even born?
How do you know that? How can you quantify that?
We can literally look up numbers.
Go ahead, quantify how many dads leave don't put their name on the birth certificate, versus how many men. We literally can find the data for men that lose custody of their children in court. Show me the data of men that leave their child at the hospital.
Okay, I can try to find this, but it's going to take me a little bit because I don't have this number like offhand. But I mean, I can try to find it. But why do black men have this unique problem when all these same welfare systems exist for white people, for Indian people, for Asian people as well?
Why
do black men have this unique problem? Did you really ask that question?
Well, number one, I do think so. Hold on a second. I will yield a couple points to what Destiny's talking about in terms of crime, right? I do think that there is a culture of crime that is present, right? But I do think that when it kind of is a chicken and egg conversation. I think that when you're raised in a single mom household, that it kind of is a cycle, right? That's what I honestly think. So I do see what he's saying in terms of crime, but at the same time, it's not like the court system. It's not like if a black father out there wants his child, that the courts, even if the mom is strung out, that the courts are going to do everything to make sure that black father is able to have his kid.
Well, here's the reality. These are the numbers when it comes to, well, not the numbers, but this is the reality when it comes to black families. When you have black families, when there is a structured black family where you have the father and the mother, the child is way more likely to succeed and not get in any trouble or things of that nature. Also, if the child is awarded, if the father is awarded custody of the child and he's being raised by a single father, he's less likely to get into trouble. The only time we see black men growing up and getting into a lot of trouble is when they're single mother raised. Now, the reason why this is, in my personal opinion, because I can't really quantify it, is because the women of today are not really taking the time to actually teach those children. They're actually zoning out. They have the children in the household running buck wild, they go outside, they run buck wild, and they're not really playing a heavy role in those children's lives. So that's what's going on culturally.
Yeah, but the question is who's from. I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at this number. So here, this is like, because I've never looked at like this particular data before, but listed someone here. Apparently, 32% of black newborns have no father listed on the birth certificate. Now, this is just one. This is just Cook County, Illinois, but damn,
that's one part.
That is one part. Do you have any numbers on how many black fathers are listed on the birth certificate?
I know that I have numbers on how many children are awarded custody to their mother.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything.
I still have 90%. You have 30%.
Yeah, but you don't know why the number is 90%. That's the whole part of that conversation.
And you don't know why that number is 30%.
Well, is it because they're
maybe the mom told him the wrong hospital? I mean, if you're just making up, we both could make up numbers.
Okay. I can't think of many reasons why somebody wouldn't be on a birth certificate. If you can't, well, maybe the father dies. I don't know if that'd be a reason to give off. I can't think of many reasons why. If you can think of some, then that's fine. Plus,
I can't think of a reason. Hold on a second. I can't think of a reason why 90% of custody should be awarded to women.
Okay, I can give you a ton of reasons right now because women tend to be primary caregivers for children. Courts tend to prioritize the well-being of the child, and a lot of fathers that fuck a woman might just end up leaving completely. So there's like barely even.
How do you know the last one?
How do I know that fathers are more likely to leave mothers than mothers leave?
How do you know that with something that is that radical, with 90% to 10%, right? How do you know that every single one of those was a father that just did not want to be there? Okay, so if it's 90%, how do you know if even half of those were a father that just did not want to be in the child's life?
I don't know what the exact numbers are. If you're going to tell me that some men fight custody battles and they should win, but they lose because of a gender bias, that probably happens for sure. But when you look at a number like 90-10, That's not all sexism. A lot of that is going to be people awarded to mothers because the mother is the primary caregiver in that situation. I don't even know if the 90% figure is accurate. By the way, I'm trying to find a number on that.
I think it's like last time I checked,
well,
90%. I'm rounding up, but I think it's like 88 or 89.
If you want to know where the 90% comes from, it's very simple. There are a lot of practices that go on in the court system that are still reminiscent of the past. It's still archaic. Okay, it's no different than the freaking marriage license. It's no different than any of that. We're still operating under the presumption that women are going to be better caregivers. That's the main reason. They automatically assume that when two people separate, the woman is going to remain in the house and the man is going to leave the house. So the court system does not want to uproot the child out of the house that they're used to living in and put them in another house. Sure. That's the reason. Here, like, now, hold on. Let me say this. For the 32%, that are not on the birth certificates, there's a few things that could be. One, the main reason is they could not know who the damn father is. That's one of the reasons. One of the reasons is you got so much promiscuity, because here's the thing. When it comes to Black culture specifically, there are two things that are being promoted in our music, which has a huge effect on our culture, which is for the guys, gang culture, crime, drug dealing is constantly promoted. For the girls, promiscuity, acting like thoughts, that is constantly promoted. So when you have that going on, you have more young boys that are more prone to go out here and be part of gangs because they want to be part of something, or to go out here and sell drugs because they may have grown up with a mom that didn't have any money. And the other part of this is women tend to, when they're single mothers, they tend to look at their sons as a meal ticket. Oh, he's going to grow up and go do this, or he's going to go out and go do this and help with the household because that's the little man of the house, right? So you got that going on. On the flip side of that, you got the girls growing up, going out here, getting into the party lifestyle, all of that different stuff, getting pregnant. Sometimes they don't even know who the damn father is. Why do you think you had the emergence of these goofy shows back in the 90s where you are not the father, all of that goofy stuff? There's a lot of stuff that factors into that.
Okay, so nothing you told me can be proven, right? There's no number, there's no data. It's just like your stories. I can try to find stuff. I'm just digging around to see. But like, so here's a couple of things that I found, right? This is talking specifically about like that 90% figure. That the certain men's rights groups have made the claim, and now the fucking page. Certain men's rights groups have made this claim. It seems obvious enough, given that it's that Chicago Tribune thing that I linked. It seems this fucking dog shit ass fucking thing. Hold on one second.
All right.
It's giving
Still
me
don't know what an NFT is, but we got you.
It's all right. I could tell. If you need me to tell you what an NFT is, I can explain.
That's my favorite episode with him, the NFT.
Jesus. Okay. Certain men's rights groups have repeatedly made this claim, okay, that mothers have an automatic advantage in custody cases. It seems obvious enough given that more than 90% of the children of divorced and single parents live with their mothers. But there's more to that statistic than meets the eye. Most divorcing or single fathers, roughly 90%, never ask for custody. In contested divorce and parentage custody cases, however, the father wins 60% of the time. So if that's true, that completely blows up your entire narrative.
Would you like me to ask? Would you like me to answer why that is?
Yeah, let me see that.
Because I can tell you why that is if you really want to know.
Yeah, because usually they don't go to court because they don't have the funds or whatnot. But go ahead.
They don't. Here's
wait, and single moms do have the funds to go to court?
Here's the thing. No, wait a minute.
Maybe.
Here's the thing. Because I had this issue when I first got on YouTube in 2015. There was a guy that I used to deal with that would actually help guys go to court. And the problem he kept encountering is most guys did not want to go to court to fight for custody because they believed they would automatically lose.
But 60% win. Most fathers win when they contest.
Know that.
That is another fault of black men. That's more black men problems if they don't know that then.
Wait, hold on. Listen to what I'm saying. Not saying it's not their fault that they don't understand or educate themselves on what they can do in the court system. But you have to realize, for black men culturally, the court is a place where they believe they're always going to lose. Okay, that's just a cultural thing. All right, we can't get around that. Now,
there's no way to get around that. Come on.
No, I'm saying we can't get around the fact that is a cultural thing they believe. Now, I constantly tell guys on my channel that you can go to court and win. And there are a lot of guys in the space that we're talking about who have went to court and won custody of their children. But most guys do not believe that they can do it. They believe that that's going to be a hard fight. In addition to the fact that the court system plays a lot of dirty tricks. A prime example is when a woman first goes to get child support. She goes to the court. She signs a affidavit. This affidavit states clearly that she has not received a single dollar from the named father, whoever she names as the father. She's saying that she's never seen a dollar from him. He's never given any support. Now, that initial court date, if the father is able to go to that court date and prove that he's given some money, then he'll win that case because she signed the affidavit. The problem is they don't serve fathers on that initial court date. And I know this because I went through it. You don't even know about that court date. If you're lucky enough to know about that court date, you can go and fight it. But what happens is you don't get served by a process server for that court date. Half the time, these fathers don't even know they're on child support until one day they look at their check and money's missing. And they're like, what's going on? Then they contact the child support division to find out what's going on. And it's like, oh, you owe child support. Then they then they say, okay, well, when did this happen? Oh, well, you
okay, hold on. I'm trying to. This sounds like completely not true because of my personal experience with legal. Hold on, wait, real quick, because I'm just looking this up. So this is saying that like when you're doing like custody battles, you are right that the court won't serve the person, but that's because it's your responsibility. If you like, you're not going to have your wages garnished for child support when you were never served anything. There's no possible way that's true. And this is saying here that if the other parent is not served within 120 days, your complaint will be dismissed and you'll have to start all over.
You don't even know. Hold on. See, you don't know because you didn't go through it. Okay,
I can't argue against your story. I can only go by like what's true. What I can see, like you.
Number one. Wait a minute. Number one. Here's the reality. You will get served papers after you owe child support. You'll get served, but the initial court date, you rarely ever get served those papers. They will not track you down, is what I'm saying. They will not track you down for you to come to that initial court date. And the reality is, this has happened to me a couple of times because I kept having the same issue where I'm like, okay, I'm taking care of my children, but then she goes to the court to do whatever. I don't get the initial paperwork. Then when I go to court, I have to explain this to the judge. I did not get the initial
here, real quick,
paperwork.
because we don't need the whole process explained. So I just want to understand this. You're telling me that you could have two people living together, everything is chill. One person could sneak off to court. They could file for sole custody, go back home to the other parent, and months and everything could pass, and that whole process can be done without service ever being given to the party whose custody is being contested against.
Yes. You can look. Here's the thing. They have what is called a TANF check, right? A woman can go and she can apply for a TANF check. And the reason why she's applying for this check is she's saying, I don't know who the father of my child is, right? Or the father of my child is not around. I don't know where he's at, right? So they say, okay, we'll give you this check.
I'm trying to like research this online. Everything is saying the opposite. Can anybody find like a source for this? Because I can't.
The amount of
I can't
money
find anything of this. This sounds
that
wild
year
to me.
is the equivalent of child support. And that money is stacked against the father in arrears. Now, once that year is up, that check literally stops and it converts into a child support case. He's never went to court. There are dudes that are in households with women that went and did this because they didn't know any better. And now the guy that is living in the house with the woman owes child support to the woman that's in the same household as him.
I'm just trying to find like any like external thing. I'm just curious on this.
Yo, the court system is screwed up, bro. When it comes to child support, it is screwed up and it is biased.
Can I just address one of the articles Destiny put in the chat or the private chat?
Yeah.
I think it was the Chicago Tribune. He was talking about the 60% of the time, the fathers, if they fight, they win. It mentions here that some of that 60% is a goal for the fathers are most likely to seek custody when the mother is egregiously unfit or dysfunctional. Yeah. And then it leads on to, after that, many of the other cases result from the mother's financial inability to support the child.
Wait, either I'm lagging or he's
Of
lagging. I
course,
can't understand.
related to the father's.
You have to Sway. You have to repeat it.
Which part? This last part?
Yeah,
Yeah, you're going in and out.
Okay,
yeah,
so
you're
it says
how you was wrong because I just read it too. Yeah, you're wrong, Destiny.
What am I wrong on?
You're wrong for citing this, right? It's saying that the 60% is accounted by that comes from people that are already married. In contested divorce custody cases, the father wins 60% of the time. We're not talking about cases where they're married.
No. The other comparison thing was uncontested. If 90% of children of divorced single parents are living with their moms,
okay,
and that's all uncontested because the dad never asked, well then of course that has nothing to do with the courts. So that just goes to show that 90% of the time the children wanted to live with the mom, and the mom wanted to have the children.
The point that you just made from this Chicago Tribune thing was that women were awarded or men were awarded custody 60% of the time. Those are from divorce cases. Those are from cases where people have already been married. So you're ruling out and if we're talking about the black community, you're ruling out a lot of those children that were born out of wedlock, which we know is the majority.
Hold on, even what you're saying is not true. If you read the sentence, it says in contested divorce and parentage custody cases. It's accounting for that's divorce and parentage cases. So those are two.
Okay. So,
but my problem with this article though is that it'll try. I didn't finish saying it says many of the other cases result from the mother's financial inability to support the child. Then it leads to say, of course, that often is closely related to the father's failure to pay child support. So even when the mother has an inability to support the child, it's still the man to blame. And did you know, Destiny, if a man doesn't pay child support, he could go to jail? And we're talking about men who can't pay child support, right? So now they can't pay child support because they literally don't have the money most of the time, and then they get sent to jail, and then they don't have the money anymore. Like a lot of these stuff happen, get caught up in the system that we can say is just on the men. They need to step up. But if you get put on child support where you don't even know you are on it, and now you don't want to pay it or you can't pay it, and you end up going to jail for something like this, like that's a little bit of nuance that you won't ever talk about.
Hold on. First, wait. Hold on. We can't have like three fucking people bouncing back and forth. I can't respond to anything. Okay. So firstly, let's read this entire thing. Okay. Some of that 60% is accounted for by the fact that the fathers are most likely to seek custody when the mother is egregiously unfit or dysfunctional. This says some, so that implies less than 50%. Okay. So it's not just when the mother is fucking egregiously unfit or dysfunctional. Okay. When you talk about like going to jail for not paying child support that you didn't even know that you owed, I've been through the child support process because me and my kid's mom are separated and I wanted to do everything by the courts. My understanding from my personal experience is that both sides have to be served papers. You can't, when you go to a court to file when the father is known. Now, if the father is unknown or something, that might be a different process. But when the father is known and you are seeking a relief from that person, when you go to file those papers, service has to be given to the other member of that complaint. It'll be listed on the paper. Like for the county clerk to like file the paperwork, pretty sure both people to be involved. Now, there might be some like extra cases where that is not the case. I'm Googling like crazy to try to find it, but every single thing that I'm seeing is saying you must serve papers. You have to serve papers. That you're not just going to wake up one day and have a child support order against you and like, holy fuck, I didn't even go to court for this ever. I've never seen that ever.
It says you have to serve papers, but is that, look, there's a difference between service, right? One version of serving papers is delivering it, but another version is you got to sign for it. Okay. What I've noticed is that initial case, they went on with the case without me signing anything. Now, after that, when I had subsequent cases, I had to sign for the service. I had to sign for the paperwork. Okay. So I don't know what jurisdiction you're in, but in different jurisdictions, they do things differently, right? Everybody knows different jurisdictions have different.
I live in Florida now. I know what Florida law is, and I was in Nebraska. I've had people serve me papers before. Service to me has required acknowledgement. Now I could be wrong, and if somebody links me or whatever, I'll be like, okay, it's different here because it might be. I don't know the law everywhere. I agree with that 100%. But I would be surprised. You're telling me there are states where legal service can be dropping something off in a mailbox, and that's like service? I've served you papers? Because this is why, like in movies and shows and everything, somebody will find you at work with like, hey, here you go, you've been served, like you have these papers.
Yeah. But if you notice, look, I don't know what's going on. Like I have an issue with it because I feel like service means that I should be signing for something, but every single time that has happened to me, and I'm not the only guy, I've had other guys tell me the same thing, that initial court date, the one where they could actually contest it. They didn't get service. They didn't even know. They didn't even know until after they owed it. And it's crazy because what happens, just like Sway just said, you know, when you don't know or you actually get locked up for it, whatever, you're not really locked up for child support. You're locked up for failing to adhere to a court order, right? That's the loophole, because they're not supposed to be locking you up for owing child support.
Yeah, in California, you have to do. I mean, like, if something happened to you, maybe you missed it, or maybe something happened, or I can't speak to your personal story, but like in every state I'm looking up, like according to the judicial branch of California, the party who chooses to begin the legal process must notify the other and must do so through the service of papers. Within the context of child custody, the parent seeking custody has to serve copies of their filed paperwork to the other parent. Like, I don't think you can just like say like, oh, I served them and now they're garnished and now they're getting locked up for child support.
We're dealing with the court system. And when you're dealing with the court system, there's a whole lot of loopholes that are used for numerous purposes. And like Patriarchy said a second ago, it is biased in favor of the women.
I don't believe any of this. If you guys want to like link me something or whatever, that's fine. But we can't just keep saying it's biased. This is my story.
Destiny,
yeah, go for
Destiny,
it. Okay.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
The link that you just. So I'm going to post something right now.
Mm-hmm.
What year did that article come out that you posted from the Chicago Tribune?
From 94.
1994. Okay, I have something right here that is a little bit more recent. So I will say this, right? What I'm saying right now is still 60% awarded to women. When I said 90%, I made a mistake. I was thinking about child support payments, right? Like 90% of child support payments, 90% of alimony goes to women. Sometimes I get that confused. But right here, it's still saying the overwhelming majority, and this is 2018, the overwhelming majority, and I posted too, the overwhelming majority is still going to women. And that's more recent than 1994.
Sure, but now the question is, are these in contested custody battles, or is this just on who's asking for custody, right? Well, I can actually, I'll just click through and I can check. Hold on.
Because I posted one, I think, before too.
See, I came up here because I mean, we can get into the whole, you know, custody and child support system and all that. But I mean, if we're going to talk about single mothers and absentee fathers, is there no choice behind having a child?
Yeah, there is. There's a choice for men and women. That's why I'm saying I wouldn't just blame black women. There's an attack on both sides there, I think. Also, just real quick, so this thing doesn't talk about like in custody fights. This could just be
the census. I just posted the census one because I want to go direct to the primary source.
Yeah, so sure. I clicked through to this too, but just real quick, there's like 19 pages. I can scroll through and look, but like it's gonna take me a sec. But like because I control left in this, I tried to find contested, control F contested, and this doesn't look like it's talking about contested custody. This is just talking about where do the children tend to live.
But it doesn't talk about where it's awarded. Let me look through it myself. Hold on.
So I bring that up because Destiny, I don't know if you are very hip to what goes on in the black community. I don't expect you to be, but as a common narrative, even before I was born, that I don't need a man and I can do all bad by myself. I can raise a kid by myself. I don't need a man to raise a child. There are videos from early as the 60s to the 80s to the 90s to the early 2000s that show multiple times black women saying, I don't need a man in my life to raise these kids.
Yeah, but where did that come from?
Their grandmothers.
And why? Because black men were getting locked up, because black men were selling crack, because black men were killing each other in the streets, right? Yeah, so it's not surprising.
This comes before that.
Black women weren't saying this in the 50s. Black women were saying this in the 50s and 60s.
They were saying these in the 60s. This started in the 60s. This came very, very prevalent in the 60s. This started before the whole crack epidemic and everything that the narrative behind black men. We are always the guinea pigs when anything happens in America, and breaking up the family homes was clear, shows you the outcomes in the black community. I tell my girlfriend this all the time. As much as y'all preach this strong, independent, I could do bad by myself. Look at the black community and see where we're at. As much as y'all think you can, the outcomes you get as to when women rebel against their men in totality and say they can do all bad by themselves, they don't need a man to raise a child. You get a bunch of degenerate children who are either strippers or in jail, or like you try to say, some drug addicts that don't do shit.
I mean, you can point to black women all you want, but like, what are the black men doing?
I'm not complaining. I'm just stating. Just stating reality.
I'm not going to sit here and say there's no responsibility on black women to be more careful about who they open their legs for, right? I agree with that 100%. right? But we can't. You can't turn a blind eye to black crime, to black drug dealing. You can't turn a blind eye to black successful people that get big in certain communities and then propagate a culture that is destructive to other black men, right? And those are black men leading those types of cultural norms as well. So I just
nobody's. I don't think
nobody's blameless.
Here,
but my question is, who's being kept alive by the state more? Who's taking more from the state?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Wait. Well, the question is, what costs more, welfare for a black child or the amount of money we pay every year to incarcerate a black man? I don't know what the answer to that is. Do you?
Well, I mean, even if you want to look at...
They actually make money off of incarcerating black men. That it's not, we're not paying. You got to realize we now have privatized prisons. So privatized prisons actually get paid to incarcerate people. They actually get paid so much every day for every single day that you have an inmate in that prison. So it's not us that's the thing where we think, oh, we're paying for these prisons. We're not paying for these prisons.
Well, first of all, what you just described is we are paying for those prisons, right? The government has to pay other companies to do it because it's not profitable. It might be profitable for that company, but overall it's a drain. That's why the money has to come from the government to do it. But also, private prisons are less than 10% of all the prisoners in the country. Right, private prisons are like this huge thing that's like housing everybody. It's like 8% of people are housed in private prisons.
You said 8%?
Yeah, and we're losing money on that.
You got a stat for that? You got a source for that?
Yep, right here. I think it's almost right at the top. 26 states and federal governments incarcerated 99,754 people in private prisons in 2020, representing 8% of the total state and federal prison population.
Put that in the back chat for me.
The thing, I get what you're saying. I just think that you should blame the people for blame one group for what it is that they're doing, right? So I don't disagree with you talking about blaming black men for dealing drugs and committing violence, but at the same time, right, to go back to your original statement, you said black women were the backbone of the community, right?
Yeah.
You said that they outnumber black men 3-1
in some communities. Yeah,
in some communities, but in general, right, there's a lot more black women than they are black men. How is that backbone doing?
Well, considering women are approaching black men in income, I mean, that's one thing. Black women are out-graduating black men, right? Okay. I mean, like, it seems like they're trying, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're doing great because that's not a great position to be in. The broad here's just, I think you're misunderstanding me. I'm not here to shit on black men, okay? Like, for every issue that I brought up with black men, why are they selling drugs? Why are they killing each other? Why are they doing these things? It's because the lot in life they've been given goes back to fucking slavery. It's fucked. There's a whole bunch of shit.
Disagree.
Okay, you can disagree if you want, but black families don't
Slavery
live in
has
certain.
Nothing to do with you dealing dope.
Okay, that's fine. You disagree with that, but I'm a liberal SJW blue hair, so this is what I believe, right? That even through fucking Jim Crow and before the Civil Rights Act, where your grandparents were allowed to live, what part of the city you could have a house in, all of this shit. What?
Were they dealing dope?
No, but they were getting fucked by anybody that could fuck them, right?
Here's the thing. Hold on.
Wait. Let me just make my point, okay? I'm just saying that, like, I understand why the issues in the black community that exist for men exist, and I'm not going to sit here and say fuck them for that. But while I'm acknowledging that, I'm also going to acknowledge the issues for black women as well, right? When black women are like, oh, I don't need a baby daddy, I can do this shit on my own. Fuck black men, blah 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 blah. Well, that's a response to black men. The same way that black men not trusting cops is a response to cops fucking over black men. Black women not trusting black men is going to be in response to black men fucking over black women. I think we have to understand at the end of the day, like, everybody's reacting.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, go.
But with all of that, then you can't have a problem with the red pill then, because if you are saying that you understand the relationship dynamics between certain groups of people, you understand that black men are apprehensive to police officers and women are apprehensive to men. Why is it when men create a space for themselves where they're naming all the negative things that women have done to be aware of these things, why then is it an issue?
Because when you get into, any good leader or successful person knows that putting yourself in a victim mindset of blaming and looking at everybody else for doing wrong things is never going to propel you forward. What you have to do is you got to look at, what can I do to take accountability? What can I do to further, like, my situation in life, right? And that's all you can do. And the constant pitting forth of, like, men and women against each other, like, at the end of the day, regardless of how black men treat black women or black women treat black men and women want to be together, just like white men and women want to be together, and Asian women and men want to be, like, everybody wants to date people that look like them or in their communities. That's what we all want at the end of the day.
But nobody,
making it really adversarial, I just think, like, it fucks everybody. It makes it hard for everybody.
But here's the thing.
He said this on Fresh and Fit. They are, you said, an adversary, right? They are adversarial because that's what comes when women come into certain places that were historically designed for men. You said that men need to do more than have a paycheck, right? Okay, so when you are now getting a paycheck as well, when we have to compete with each other in school, when we have to compete with each other in the workplace, when we have to compete with each other socially, that makes you a competitor, which makes you an adversary.
It's you can be. There's a difference between competing in some ways and being adversarial, right? Like,
what is the definition of an adversary?
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing.
I'll let y'all know right now, though. The way you framed it, Destiny, you framed it to where black and women and men are competing against each other by all stats of metrics.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing about this, because we got before y'all pass all of that, we got to go back to something. Okay, number one, what you said about black women doing this in response to black men. Black women doing what they did is not in response to black men. That is a misnomer. First of all, prior to the 60s, prior to the 70s, you did not have black men doing what we're talking about right now. The everything that was done in response, the 93 crime bill, everything that was done that caused that to come about, that was not the reality for black people in the 50s and the 60s. Black people in the 50s and the 60s had one of the highest marriage rates. Yeah. Black people in the 50s and the 60s had community. Okay. It isn't until after you see the emergence of this new form of a welfare system that you begin to see the degradation of the black family.
Well, but but the welfare system is a response to like single.
It's a response to poverty. It's a response to the poverty that black people as a whole were enduring.
But you can't blame single moms for wanting welfare. They need help taking care of their kids, and you can't blame the 93 crime bill for issues in the black community when the black community wanted the 93 crime bill.
Hold on. Number one, I'm not blaming black women for wanting welfare, because they were in the 60s, they were in a state where they needed it. What I can blame them for is once they saw how it was disproportionately affecting their community, I can blame them for creating a lifestyle choice to be on welfare. In this day and age, you have black people that are on welfare as a choice. They are able-bodied and they can do something else, but they're choosing not to. So I can blame them for that. I can blame our system for incentivizing having children. Now, as far as the 93 crime bill, I'm not saying, that black people didn't ask for it. Yeah, the Congressional Black Caucus, which many of them do not even really represent us. Okay, that's number one.
Hold on.
Yeah, they voted for him.
Wait. Let me say this. They do not represent our best interests. Okay. Now, I can blame the 93 crime bill for mass incarceration, and I'm not the only one who has blamed the 93 crime bill for mass incarceration, not just of black people, but Americans in general. So no, that wasn't solving a problem.
Well, okay. Crime did go down though. Like I got to be honest. Unfortunately, hold on a second. The thing is this, right? I'll be that. I'll be a coon. Listen. At the end of the day, whatever's going to make the crime go down, I'm pro crime bill, right? I think that the crime was so high in the late 80s and the early 90s that even, like you said, black people had no choice. And let's be honest, right? When you talk about the Congressional Black Caucus, a lot of black people did put those people in power, right? And black people back then, different from right now, they wanted safety and security. And I mean, Biden's crime.
I can agree to that, but there's only one problem. When you have a number of factors that are going to cause black people to get disproportionately policed, disproportionately locked up.
But that's because the crime was disproportionately in black communities.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
Wait a second. See, y'all are not. See, this is a little bit of a disingenuous argument, and this is me. I'm gonna be a liberal for a second. We got to have a better solution other than just locking people up and throwing away the key.
I agree. I think everyone agrees. Everybody agrees, but the problem was that the crack was destroying the black community. Crime was rampant. The homicide rates in the 90s were fucking wild. Places like New York were fucking battle zones. And like, was the crime bill the best solution? Probably not. But like, this idea, and I'm not saying you guys are doing this, but a lot of people on my side, a lot of the white people will do this shit. We're like, oh no, in the 90s it was just white people being racist. I don't think it was. I think it was black people who saw their communities getting fucking destroyed that were looking for any type of answer to those problems. And if mass incarceration was the way to go, then fuck it. Like, that's better than...
I'm pro-crime bill. We need another one.
That exacerbated the problem. That made
no. It solved the problem, but it created another one. It did reduce crime. It didn't solve it. It reduced crime, but it made other problems like mass incarceration of black men. It hurt black families. Right? I agree with that, but
I agree with you during the time.
It created. Hold on. It was a Band-Aid, and what it did is it created another offset of black culture. It created the prison culture where guys are getting freaking celebrations for getting out of prison instead of getting celebrations for graduating college. So it created this culture where black people think, well, that's just one of the things you do. You go to prison. Like, it's in every person, every one of those people. Like, we got to stop ignoring the fact that when it comes to the crime bill, a lot of those people that got locked up were nonviolent offenders. They weren't even the individuals that were committing crimes.
I don't know about that. Like, there are a lot of people during that time, right? You can directly attribute crack to high murder rates, right? You can look at when the drug trade as affecting those high murder rates. And the thing is, for me, I can't argue with results, right? So if the results of the crime bill are lower crime, then I'm gonna go with it. I'm sorry.
Well, I hate to be the one to say it, but I gotta say it, because if I don't say it, every single brother in here is gonna be upset with me, because it needs to be said. First of all, you're talking about a situation that is a created situation. Okay. You're talking about a situation where you have narcotics being funneled into a community to fund a war. And this is not speculation. This is not me guessing. This is now historical fact. Okay. So we can't just ignore the fact that it's a created problem. So one, you might as well call it entrapment. You have a disproportionately affected community when it comes to poverty. You put something in that community that's going to cause problems, and then once the people engage in that activity, you lock them up. There actually might even be a class action lawsuit case if black people got their shit together, if you really want to be honest. But I just had to point that out.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, the thing that a black woman would say is nobody's forcing you to buy crack. Nobody's forcing you to sell crack, and nobody's forcing you to kill somebody over crack.
Nobody's forcing her to be on welfare.
No, she's not. But if she needs help taking care of the child, like,
I think nobody forced her to have a baby by a crackhead.
Hold on for a second. The same thing that you just said can be applied to if you got a kid that lives in the projects, he has no options, but then he sits there and he sees all of these people on drugs, and he knows he can sell drugs to make money to feed himself. That's no different than these people going down there to the office to get welfare.
Sure. I'm not saying it's right. I'm the liberal here. I agree with you. Okay, 100%. The situations are fucked up. The only thing I'm pushing back on is blaming just the black women. I think everybody's got their responsibility for all the issues that happen, women and men alike. I just wouldn't say it's
I think the frustration with saying like blaming just the black women, bro. Black men have been the blame of the black community's failure for the past 60 to 80 years. Before I was born, I've been hearing this shit since I was a child, that black men ain't shit. We ain't done nothing. All the negative stereotypes about us since I was a child. And then now we start talking about the discretions and issues we've had with black women for the past 60 years, for 2 years. And everybody's like, oh, you guys are talking way too much about the black women and you are attacking us. It's like, bro, we are trying to work through our issues and come to a resolution. But like you said, Destiny, as much as, you know, I think, I don't know where ANGRYMAN is, but personally, I don't literally blame the white man for a lot of our problems. I mean, if we want to talk about a welfare system, when the welfare system was being implemented, they had a study on this and how it affected the white community and the black community. For some reason, when the unemployment rate of the men of those cultures, when it was down, the women's welfare was up. And then in the white community, once the unemployment went down for the men, the welfare went down. But in the black community, the welfare kept going up even as the men were getting jobs. So at that point, they understood it wasn't about the men's money or trying to actually financially take care of the kids. It was a mentality, like I said, that they didn't need a man to take care of their kids.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you that for a large point of the past like 60, 70, 80 years, that black men have been the ire of the black community. They get shit on by white people, by black women, or whatever. That's horrible. I agree with that. But like for the past like 20 or 30 years, as black men have at the very least like largely socially elevated themselves, as they started to earn a little bit more money, as they've gained like big positions in entertainment, right? Well, what are the cultural norms now? Nobody likes black women, right? But black men are fucking fetishized in some communities, depending on what you're looking at, right? But if you look at like what we can say like dating apps, or you talk to anybody, right? Sure, yeah, light-skinned women are, sure, but I'm just saying that like fucking black women are like down there with like Asian men in terms of like the types of people that people are trying to like date or emulate or whatever, right? So the idea that like today, I think that some of the standards have switched a bit, that there are black men that are gaining a lot of wealth, right? Not even just millions in entertainments, but sometimes past $1 billion for a lot of these musicians like Jay-Z and stuff that are coming out like starting businesses and stuff, right? I think that black men have done a good job in some places of getting really far, but it feels like some of the complaints are that a lot of that reinvestment doesn't happen back into the community, that a lot of that money is used to further negative cultural trends, right? People look at like Jewish people and it's like, fuck, well, what do, right? They hire their friends, they're doctors and lawyers for each other, they help each other out. And I was like, okay, well, what do black men do with their money? They make more songs to tell them to go kill each other, right? Well, I'm just saying that, I'm just, again, and I want to reiterate, I'm not trying, hold on, I just want to reiterate, I'm not trying to shit on black men.
No, Destiny, in this space, we would agree with you.
Sure, okay, yeah. I'm just saying that I just don't like the focusing on... Sure, I just don't like the focus on shitting on black women. I think there are problems on both sides.
Here's my thing.
Well, we're not shitting on them. We're just bringing out issues.
No, I agree. And there might be issues. Well, the Angry Man started by saying most of the problems in the black community, maybe the majority, the vast majority. I don't know if you guys want to give it a percentage, but he was saying it was mainly black women's fault. That's what I was pushing back.
No, what I'm saying, What I'm saying, look, here's my thing. Because, you don't watch me, Destiny, but these other guys watch me.
Sure.
There have been plenty of times I've had this conversation about what black men need to do and the problems with black men. I don't just talk about black women, but I can sit back and I can, when I see black men trying to be in their children's lives, trying to do the right thing, and the women are giving them extreme pushback because we now have a culture of, I don't need a man, black men ain't shit, y'all ain't hitting on nothing, blase blah. See, this is no longer about statistics. This has become a cultural trend.
Yeah, I agree.
For black women to be against black men.
Yeah, and that's shitty, and I agree with you. But again, like sometimes what's sold in culture is like, what is a successful black man? Somebody that finds a really hot white woman. Look at Deion Sanders. Look at Deion Sanders, who walked away from that HBCU to go coach at fucking Colorado or whatever, right? Instead of staying, right?
Which he should have.
Okay,
but
maybe he should have. But I'm just saying
that's civil rights, though.
Sure, I know, but I'm just saying that
people getting away from other black people.
Well, but I don't think I feel like the people in the I don't think that people like that appearance, right? Usually the idea is that people try to help their communities and give back and do what they can to like elevate their communities. But it feels like the success path for a lot of really successful black men is getting as far fucked away from their community as possible.
And
right?
you know
That's
why?
What happens when it's dangerous.
Because this happens because when you have guys like a Nipsey Hussle, who tries to turn his life around and try to do something positive. He's in a relationship with a black woman. He tries to create a center to help kids get into STEM program. He tries to put money back in his community, and he gets killed by his own community. It happens over and over again. So what's happening is you have black men who become successful, and the reason why they leave their communities is because their communities have been constantly dealing with so much poverty that by the time one person or a small percentage of guys actually achieve some real level of success, they immediately become a target. They immediately become the victim of their own community. The problem is, as long as we continue to have the same issues, and I remember I watched one of your debates. You debated ABL. You debated Anthony Brian Logan, and you pointed out something that I was like, "Oh shit, that's a very good point." Where you said part of the reason that the black community might have issues is because we don't really have a lot of after school programs. We don't really have a lot of places for these kids to be. And what they end up doing, and this is me adding to that, what they end up doing is they end up becoming, being part of gangs and getting into trouble and all of these different things. So the problem that we have in the Black community, I have told everybody over and over again, is that we don't participate in our local elections, and two, we don't really have a family structure anymore that's raising children properly. Now, if you really want to point the blame when it comes to that, yeah, you can say, oh, the fathers are not there, blah, blah, blah. But we are ignoring the fact that the mothers are there. And there used to be a time where even when there was a single Black mother, she still raised well-rounded adults that were able to function in society without being criminals. But nowadays you don't see that, and you don't see that because there is a failure going on amongst Black women who are single mothers, and nobody wants to acknowledge it because, like always, we still have the same mindset that we've always had throughout history, which is whenever a woman is perceived to be attacked, then everybody has to protect that woman. Instead of holding her accountable. Men, we can talk all day about what Black men are doing wrong. Black men are being held accountable. Black men are going to jail for owing child support. Black men are being incarcerated for committing crimes and selling drugs. Women, however, are doing a lot of goofiness, being very neglectful to their children, and they're not getting any sort of reprimanding. They're not getting any sort of punishment for it.
If anything, they're getting a lot of America in general just gives praise to women's totality. It's not even Black women, just women's attitude, their weight. If they have if they have a child out of wedlock, a lot of times they're not negatively shamed for having that in 2023. More often than not, they're empowered to be these things, and we're not to judge them for it.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk about the financials part, about we could talk about money from the men who doesn't get back. I mean, Black people do a lot of dumb shit in totality. We could talk about the churches, the amount of money we spend in the churches, and that's not any type of recycling system that gives back to its community. We talk about the Black Lives Matter movement. Where was our Black churches at there? Our Black churches are bought out by the government. And hella quiet, and we still go spend money there. Sure. And most of the churches are filled up by Black women.
Let me respond real quick.
And that was a movement started by women, BLM.
Yeah,
how successful was that?
Okay, real quick. So for the angry black guy, the angry man. Sorry, fuck, that sounded bad. The angry man. Okay, so I agree with you when there are issues that successful Black people have to face that I don't ever have to think about. Right? I don't have to think about trying to leave my community if I become wealthy because I'm gonna get killed or some crazy shit like that. Right? I acknowledge those are problems that exist, 100%. But if that is the case, that if you become successful as a Black person and you want to bounce because you're worried that you're going to get fucked for staying somewhere, how do you not see that wouldn't create a fuck ton of resentment in the Black women of the community if all of the successful Black men want to leave, right?
I never said it didn't.
Okay, sure.
I totally agree. I never said it didn't. There are a lot of, look, I hear all of the complaints.
Well, wait. Let me just respond to the other two things real quick too, right? The other things you were talking about for the Black women are making poor choices or whatever. It seems like Black women are slowly carving their path out, but their path out is literally them abandoning the Black community too, where you've got a lot of them will talk about divesting, where Black women get abortions more than any other class of people, which I think hurts the welfare seeking point, because if they were seeking welfare, I don't know why so many of them get abortions. And Black women are starting to attend college more, and they're starting to get better jobs, so they're starting to close that income gap with Black men. But in this scenario, there are paths to success for Black men and Black women, but because of the rhetoric where Black women are constantly shitting on Black men because their baby daddy left them, because they got hurt by some Black dude, where they tell their Black sons that they ain't shit their entire fucking lives, and now these guys are growing up with their minds fucked, right? That's not good. But then Black men constantly attacking Black women, saying, these women are fucking shit, they've been shitting us their whole lives, they hold us accountable for every fucking thing. Meanwhile, when they fuck up, they get welfare, they get housing, they get everything handed to them, and then we're demonized for it. This world of adversarial shit is just making it so that really successful Black men and successful Black women, their goal is to just get the fuck out of the Black community. And that type of overall divestment where everybody's an enemy and everybody wants to get the fuck out, that just seems to be a really bad path to go down.
Why?
Well,
because I'm going to sound like a cuck, I guess. Or I don't know. I wouldn't want to see the Black community completely fucking destroyed because all the successful people just want to leave, right?
But Destiny, that's the future, though.
Well,
that's the future. That's progressive. See, that's what we need, right?
But that's the future you guys are fighting for. Is the fighting on both sides?
No, we fight for us to stay together. Like I said, a lot of people in this space don't like Fresh and Fit. I know you've been hanging out with them, and you
sure
like,
those are the communities that I'm. Yeah.
We don't really fuck with them, nor do we agree with them. A lot of times we want
some of the stuff
some of the stuff they say, but the whole like the anger part that they give with the incel energy, cool. We don't really fuck with that. We hold black men accountable for our actions. We just hope black women could come to the table doing the same thing, where we could come to resolutions instead of trying to compromise and we both leave unhappy.
Yeah, sure. I think that would be a good thing. Just as a warning, I've got something I've got to leave in like 5 or 10 minutes, so I don't want to feel like I'm running away. But you guys can all give your.
I'm not gonna keep you. I appreciate you coming.
I don't think it can work. I think the best thing is for, as you said before, for both people to just get out, right? I think that, as you said earlier, with the evolution, it's going to make us adversarial, right? The fact that we are competing for a limited amount of resources, we're both trying to get to the top, and now we're competing with each other. I mean, I just think that this is the adaptation that you were talking about.
That seems so sad, though. Like, the adaptation has to be like the destruction of the black community. Like, it just has to like disperse into everybody else. And
it happened during civil rights.
Well,
civil rights, it already happened.
The black community, the issue. I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna let you go. I'm pretty sure you got something else to do. The black community. The problem is, and a friend of mine once said this. It needs to be razed to the ground and rebuilt, plain and simple. Because it's and really, to be truthfully honest, in my opinion, this is just my personal opinion. I'm pretty sure Sway and Patriarchy agree with me. I think it's time to get off of the black culture and just be American culture. That's just me personally. That's just my personal opinion. Because this whole idea, because it's too much conflict, it's too much goofiness, it's too much foolishness, and there's a lot of things that there's a lot of ideologies and a lot of ideas that just need to come to a stop. It just needs to come to a stop. And if I had the power to, I would abolish the welfare program. Like, that would literally solve the problem.
I will agree with you that there's like a lot of goofiness, but like, don't you think there's something to be said for the fact that there was a group of people that was enslaved in a country for over 100 years, and then civil rights is fucked for however long until 64. But despite all of those setbacks, black culture has become, in a lot of ways, like almost the predominant culture of the world. That America's most important contribution to music arguably is jazz and rock and roll. It came from black people. That the most popular form of music today is rap and hip hop all over the world. I can go to any country in the world and hear Kanye West. Well, maybe not Kanye anymore, right? But I can hear like rappers like all over the world being played. Like, I don't know. It feels like throwing all of that away because there are problems right now and just saying fuck it, when there are so many unique contributions to like the world community from like the African Americans in the United States.
It wouldn't be possible without white people.
Wait a minute. We already threw it away. And the reason why I say that, I had this discussion the other day. We already threw it away because if I were to have a conversation with the average black person, the average young black person today, they're not going to know black people's contribution to jazz. They're not going to know black people's. If I ask them, name 5 jazz musicians that were black, they're not going to be able to tell me. If I ask them who Ernie Barnes is, they're not going to be able to tell me. Like, black people have already tossed away the best part of our culture. They've already tossed it away. There's only a few of us. There's only a handful of us out here. And when I say a handful, I mean a small percentage. There's only a small percentage of us that actually still value all of those things. Now what we value, now what we're starting to be known for is gang culture, going to prison, twerking, and all this ignorant shit. Like, it's unfortunate, but it's reality.
Black history in America right now only goes back to the 90s. That's really it. Like, is you just started NWA, and if it ain't anything before NWA, niggas don't care about. People barely know what NWA is, especially the younger generation around my age, and that's only because they made movies about them, and Ice Cube is still relevant, and all these other things have been going on in the past, their childhood. But I mean, I agree with them that the black community needs to fix or come down to the ground. I'm not so sure on the Americanized part, because Americanizes in my brain, when you said that, means like the Western ideology, which we see anywhere else that subscribes to that. They're also suffering when it comes to male and female dynamics, regardless of race. So I'm not cool with the Western ideas. I also don't think it's as absolute to go back to the traditional, where a man is required to do 100% of the bills in 2022 on average. That's just not
Well,
That's
when I say Americanized, I mean black people actually participating in American structure instead of pretending that they're separate from it. In other words, black people actually going into the police force so that they can police their neighborhoods while we still have them. Going into politics, going into, participating in America so that they actually have some say so over what goes on. But Destiny, I ain't gonna keep you in here. I didn't think you were gonna show up, so I appreciate you showing up.
Ducks nobody.
Yeah.
This ended up I see that now. This ended up being more of a discussion than a debate, but I appreciate you coming through, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I enjoyed the conversation. Yeah, we were heated yesterday, but I mean that's like online shit, right? But no, yeah, I appreciate the conversation, guys. It's been fun. We'll probably chat some other time in the future, I imagine. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, have a good one,
Tell
guys.
me what an NFT is before you leave.
You really want me to?
Nah, bro. Nah, that's still my favorite.
That
That's
guy
always
didn't know.
the
Wait, are you guys? Are we
I
fans
can't
of?
stand him, man.
Oh, okay,
I
that's
can't
good.
stand
Okay.
that dude, man.
All right. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
All right, man.